Chapter 1439. You guys go back and tell Yi Liangqin that our competition is not over yet. I will definitely be the winner of the heavenly light of Golden Age. Easy Bro clicked his tongue. How shameless. You actually don't want to admit it after losing. Lu Ruoxuan suddenly approached Easy Bro. A sinister chill gushed out from her body and instantly wrapped around him. Easy Bro only felt that his throat seemed to be choked by something. For a moment, he was drenched in cold sweat and couldn't breathe. And Lu Ruoxuan's eyes were getting closer and closer to him. In those sinister eyes, there seemed to be a huge whirlpool that was sucking his soul bit by bit. However, at this moment, a talisman suddenly burned on Easy Bro's chest. The flame suddenly sprang up and went straight to Lu Ruoxuan's face. Lu Ruoxuan screamed and had to let go of Easy Bro. She took a few steps back. She looked at the burning talisman in shock and repeated Yi Liangqin a few times. Her face suddenly revealed a coquettish smile filled with ambition and desire. However, this smile was completely different from the Lu Ruoxuan of the past. It didn't make people feel charming at all. Instead, it made them feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. Easy Bro touched his chest and looked at Lu Ruoxuan's back with lingering fear. At that moment, he almost thought that he was going to die. But in Tianguang ruins, practitioners shouldn't be able to hurt each other. Why was this dancing ice like thunder so strange? Brother Gua, how are you? Bei Kue Xiang Nuan rushed over to support him. What happened just now? Why did Sister Ye's talisman suddenly burn? Easy Bro shook his head and then said with a dignified expression, I think it should be Boss Ye's talisman that saved my life just now. Taking out another talisman from his chest, Easy Bro murmured, This is the mutated rank 4 soul-fixing talisman that Boss Ye gave us. Xiao Ke, I think this talisman is very precious. It might be able to save your life at a critical moment. Bei Kue Xiang Nuan smiled. Sister Ye's talisman is of course the most powerful. Easy Bro carefully hid the talisman again and then said excitedly, No, I have to bring these talismans back for Grandpa to see. 3 days later, I will encourage Grandpa to support Boss Yi. I feel that as long as we follow Boss Yi, we definitely won't suffer. Bei Kue Xiang Nuan nodded happily. I will go and mobilize all of Sister Ye's supporters and have them support Sister Yi in an orderly manner. She didn't forget that Big Sister Ye's goal wasn't to be first in the category rankings, but first in the overall rankings. First place in the overall ranking. What a distant and frightening goal was that. Before today, there wasn't even a single participant in the talisman category that entered the top 10. Sister Ye's current points are not even half of the first place Leng Yuyao's. This should have been a delusion like a fairy tale. But for some reason, such words came out of Sister Ye's mouth. North Sunflower Xiang Nuan believed that it was possible. There were no miracles that Sister Yi and Yap Liangqin couldn't create. All the die-hard supporters of Yap Liangqin believed so. At this moment, Elegant Bro suddenly coughed and turned his head to the other side in embarrassment. He mumbled, Well, little K, my grandpa said he wants to see you. Why don't you come back with me this time? Chapter 1440. She looked into Elegant Bro's eyes, which were looking straight at her, and immediately a blush appeared on her cheeks. Lu Ruoxuan left the Tianguang ruins and returned to the modern world. The charming expression on her face suddenly turned into panic and panic. She pressed her chest and screamed, Meixine, what did you do to me? Why can't I control my body in the Tianguang ruins? A wisp of black smoke floated out of Lu Ruoxuan's chest and slowly condensed into an enchanting beauty. Last time, Meixine's body was illusory, as if it could be blown away by the wind at any time. But this time it was extremely solid. Even her hands and feet were warm, and she could touch things directly. Meixine chuckled, Don't panic. I'm just attaching myself to your divine soul and controlling your consciousness. Not only will it not harm you, but it will also make your joyous union demonic skill improve rapidly. Lu Ruoxuan was shocked. Meixine, you'd better not lie to me. Otherwise, I'd rather die with you. Meixine waved her hand disdainfully. Where's the cultivation furnace I wanted, eh? Why isn't it here yet? Lu Ruoxuan gritted her teeth. Didn't you say that as long as I find you enough cultivation furnaces, you will help me defeat Liangshan? What happened? Now she's the top of the talisman list, not me. Humph. That's because you are useless. Mei Xin frowned impatiently. Seeing that Lu Ruoxuan was about to lose her temper, she said perfunctorily, Don't worry. There is still the final, right? Just wait and see. I will definitely help you succeed in the final. Huh? Lu Ruoxuan paced anxiously in the room. How to help me succeed? Your immortal talisman is still useless, isn't it? Mei Xian's eyes darkened, and she said faintly, Just make her unable to compete anymore. Won't you win? Lu Ruoxuan was shocked and was about to ask how to make Liangshan unable to compete anymore. A greasy voice came from outside the door. Beauty, I'm here. The door was pushed open with a creak, and an ugly man with a face full of oil strode in. He was as thin as a bamboo pole. Mei Xin was shocked and returned to Lu Ruoxuan's body the moment the door was opened. When the man saw Lu Ruoxuan in revealing clothes, he immediately pounced on her with a lewd smile. Lu Ruoxuan screamed, but her clothes had already been torn. Her face was full of disgust, and she screamed loudly, Go away, I want another one. You disgusting, ugly freak, get lost. Even if she was looking for a human furnace, she would definitely look for a man who was pleasing to the eye. But this man was even uglier than Zhang Hofei, even more disgusting. How could she accept this? However, just when Lu Ruoxuan was about to resist, she suddenly felt a surge of energy in her body. It directly restrained her movements. Because of her words, the man flew into a rage out of humiliation and gave her a few tight slaps. Bitch, you still want to escape after falling into my hands? Dream on. If I don't play you to death today, I'll change my surname to yours. Lu Ruoxuan screamed under the man's torture. She struggled with all her might, but she was completely immobilized by her bewitching ability. Mei Xian's cold and sinister voice rang in her ears with a hint of laughter. Lu Ruoxuan, you're already a broken flower. Why are you still pretending to be a chaste woman? Chapter 1441. Lu Ruoxuan looks at the distorted face of the man on top of her, feeling the pain in her body and the mockery of Mei Xian. Her face is fiercely distorted, turning into a bone-piercing hatred. Yi Liangshan, Jun Mayan, Mei Xian, Jiang Xinyu. It's these people who forced her step by step into this state. She, Lu Ruoxuan, won't sink like this. One day, she must let these people die a horrible death. Yaoguang Branch. The 7 people of the Xiaoyao sect all lowered their heads, standing in front of Luo Yunxiao, not daring to breathe. In front of Luo Yunxiao, there's still a table, a chair, a zither, and a pot of wine. Slender fingers, slender joints, and jade-like. When she picks up the wine cup, it complements the jade-colored wine cup and slowly brings it to her pale lips. Her sexy Adam's apple moves slightly, and the wine enters her stomach. An elegant gentleman, gentle as jade, unparalleled. This scene is as beautiful as the most meaningful ancient painting. Even if you look at it for a lifetime, it won't be enough. But the 7 people of the Xiaoyao sect don't have the mood to appreciate it at all. Big drops of sweat roll down from their foreheads, but no one dares to wipe it. Luo Yunxiao puts down the wine cup, glances at the people present, and says softly, Do you like to drink and admire the flowers? The 7 people shake their heads, their faces full of horror. Just now, the 7 of them were trapped in the peach blossom wine pool sword array. While soaking in the strong wine, they experienced the slashes of the peach blossom sword energy. 24 hours, a whole 24 hours. Their skin is wrinkled. Their whole body is almost like a moving wine pit. Chi Wan, who found her conscience, let them out and gave them a way out. Now, when the 7 people think of drinking and admiring the flowers, they feel that it's better to die than to live. Oh, in this life, they don't want to drink and admire the flowers anymore. Lung Yuma carefully raises her head, sneaks a glance at Luo Yunxiao, and whispers, Little uncle, the appointment at Tingguang Ruins, you will go, right? Ahem. Luo Yu immediately answers, well, if you don't go, sixth sister will die. You dote on sixth senior sister the most. You wouldn't watch her die, right? Chu Moli wiped the sweat off his face and revealed a warm smile. Little Martial Uncle, this time, little junior sister is participating in the flourishing Heavenly Light competition. Shouldn't you also support her? Because junior sister taught you how to play the zither. Luo Yunxiao stretched out her hand and slowly plucked the strings of the zither. Creak! The ear-piercing sound made the 7 people of the Xiao Yao school shiver. Even Chu Moli shrunk his neck. Luo Yunxiao said slowly, tell me, who is the instigator? The 7 of them lowered their heads even more. Mu Yin clenched her teeth, took a step forward and said, Junior Martial Uncle, this was all my idea. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Senior Martial Brother and the others were also trying to help me. Little Martial Uncle, I'm willing to accept any punishment. After saying that, she couldn't help but reveal an ingratiating smile. But I've also made an announcement. If Little Martial Uncle doesn't go to the fan meet and greet, Apui, if you don't go to drink and admire the flowers, I'll definitely be eaten alive by your supporters. I beg Little Martial Uncle to save me. Luo Yunxiao slowly raised her eyebrows, and her indifferent gaze fell on her face. There seemed to be a flash in the depths of her eyes, but it quickly disappeared. Just as she was about to speak, a sharp voice suddenly came from the side. Chapter 1442. Then she will come tonight to serve Master. Bathe and warm the bed. Wahaha. Master, what do you think? Slap. Luo Yunxiao slaps Qi Wen's head, making him look like a pancake. Qi Wen lay on the ground and couldn't get up. She cried out pitifully, Master, you don't like kisses anymore. Luo Yunxiao doesn't even look at Qi Wen. She stands up and says, come to my room tonight. After that, she turns around and leaves without waiting for anyone's response. The 7 people of the Xiaoyao sect look at each other. So, Junior Martial Uncle agreed? He didn't refuse. So he agreed? Wahaha, long live Junior Martial Uncle. I said that Junior Martial Uncle loves 6th senior sister the most. Even Mu Yin breathes a sigh of relief and wipes the sweat from her forehead. She finally passed this test. Only Chu Moli shows a meaningful smile. I wonder why Junior Martial Uncle wants little junior sister to go to his room tonight. Haha, don't tell me he really wants little junior sister to warm the bed. Lung Yuma puts her hands on her hips and laughs. Little junior sister, you're really lucky. No, if 6th senior sister really warms Junior Martial Uncle's bed and Junior Martial Uncle's supporters find out, 6th senior sister is dead meat. Everyone laughed and joked about this topic. No one really takes Qi Wen's words to heart. Even Mu Yin is the same. She has always respected Junior Martial Uncle as her master. She has never thought that Junior Martial Uncle has feelings for her. Only Chu Moli slightly lowers his eyes and shows a meaningful smile. At night, Mu Yin arrives at Luo Yunxiao's room on time. She didn't expect Luo Yunxiao to throw her a storage ring. This is the latest sword technique and sword array disc, as well as the cultivation methods suitable for the other people of the Xiaoyao sect. Mu Yin widens her eyes in surprise. Junior Martial Uncle, are you leaving again? Luo Yunxiao nods. Mu Yin quickly asks, where are you going? You won't be injured when you come back, right? Luo Yunxiao originally doesn't want to answer, but when she sees Mu Yin's concerned gaze, she finally says, there won't be any danger. In the end, he still said, there won't be any danger. I just want to find something in the cultivation continent, a person. Mayan breathes a sigh of relief. So, Junior Martial Uncle, you have been looking for things and people. No wonder you are often not in the sect. Did you find the things and people you were looking for? Luo Yunxiao's gaze fell on her unblinkingly, then slowly turned away. Not yet. Mu Yin smiles faintly. Don't worry, Junior Martial Uncle. You're working so hard to find it. You'll definitely find it one day. As she spoke, she took out a large stack of talismans and a few bottles of pills and stuffed them into Luo Yunxiao's hands. Noticing Luo Yunxiao's gaze on him, he rubbed his nose in embarrassment. I know that the talismans I drew and the pills I concocted are too low grade. Little Marshal Uncle might not be interested in them, but it's better than nothing. Luo Yunxiao carefully put away the things in her hands and said in a low voice, "It's better than nothing." What? Muyan didn't hear it clearly and couldn't help but ask. Luo Yunxiao looked up, and her voice became 3 degrees colder. "I will go to Tingguang ruins in 3 days, but if you dare to push me to someone else as you please." I wouldn't dare. Muyan shakes her head like a rattle drum. "I swear, we won't dare again." Luo Yunxiao coldly snorts and directly waved his hand to drive Muyan out. Chapter 1443. Why does she feel that Xiao Shishu's anger isn't because they're using his name to swindle and deceive, but this thought only faintly flashes by, and Mayan throws it to the back of her mind. She returns to her room with a trace of reluctance and ease. However, as soon as she pushes open the door and enters, Mayan's whole body freezes. At this moment, all the ease has turned into floating clouds on the horizon. If she could, she would really like to return to a day ago and cover her crow's mouth. Really, why did she mention Di Mingju? Why did she mention that a sea of jealousy would drown Yao Guang branch? This is great. Isn't it a prophecy? She sees that in the originally empty room, there's a tall and handsome man sitting there without her noticing. The man's long hair drapes over his shoulders, and his clothes are only loose inner garments. Leaning against the headboard, the lapels of his clothes are slightly open, revealing a perfectly textured and smooth chest. Mayan's line of sight slowly moves from his perfect abdominal muscles to his sexy collarbone and Adam's apple. Finally, it falls on that peerlessly handsome face, as if it was chiseled by a chisel. She can't help but swallow. This man has always been aloof, cold and hard like iron, unattainable. That's why he occasionally reveals such a sexy and charming appearance, making people completely unable to resist. The man is leaning against her bed, his long eyelashes slightly closed, as if he's taking a nap. When he senses Mayan's entrance, his long eyelashes lift and his ice-blue pupils shine brightly. Like a whirlpool in the deep sea, it can suck in a person's soul. Mayan wails in her heart. A man with such long eyelashes, such charming eyes, such good skin. What's the use of such long eyelashes? Even the man's thin lips, under the candlelight, lose their coldness and softness, making people yearn to taste them. Mayan swallows her saliva again and walks forward step by step. She doesn't know if the voice that opens its mouth is nervous or scorching, but it's a bit hoarse. "Di Mingju, when did you come?" The man on the bed holds a wine glass in his hand, gently turning it on his fingertips. Hearing the question, the corner of his mouth hooks up, and he looks over with a smile that isn't a smile. "Naturally, I came when you said that you were going to warm Luo Yunxiao's bed." Muyan meets her man's outwardly smiling, but inwardly murderous gaze. She only feels her scalp go numb, wishing that she could immediately turn around and run away. She coughs lightly, grabs a corner of his clothes, and carefully sits on the edge of the bed. "Cough, Di Mingju. Listen to my explanation." Di Mingju snorts coldly, his gaze faintly looking at her. "Explain what?" "Explain that you're in trouble and you're willing to use Luo Yunxiao to support you, but you're not willing to let me help you. Or do you want to explain that you entered Luo Yunxiao's room in the middle of the night and gave him a bunch of talismans and pills that even I don't have?" Muyin. She felt that someone's jealousy had not only flooded the Alcade branch, but the entire Danyang mountain range. Seeing that she didn't even bother to explain after being questioned like this, Di Mingju's heart immediately flares with anger. He abruptly grabs her wrist and pulls her into his embrace. Immediately after, without waiting for Mayan to react, he turns her over and presses her under his body. He viciously glares at her. "Junmine, what do you take Ben Jun for?" Muyan blinked and met the man's angry gaze. Slowly, a sense of grievance welled up from the bottom of her heart. Chapter 1444. Di Mingju, I ascended the exquisite pagoda, the Nirvana pagoda, and the Ling Shao pagoda. I became the Lord of Clear Sky, and I made Yi Liang Qin's name resound throughout the entire Danyang mountain range. At that moment, I clearly felt Lil Bao's existence. I clearly felt that Lil Bao was very close to me, but I can't find him no matter what. I can't see him, and I can't touch him. Tears flowed from the corners of her eyes, filled with sorrow, longing, and longing. Diming Ju rarely sees Mayan cry. Seeing such a girl, he immediately panicked. He promptly gets up and takes Mayan into his arms. Jun Shangdarin, who has always been cold, speaks incoherently for once. Yin Yin, don't cry, I was wrong. Mu Yin suddenly grabs his hand and ruthlessly bites it. A hoarse voice rises with a sobbing tone. Diming Ju, I want to see Xiao Bao. Being bitten by someone is naturally extremely painful, but Diming Ju doesn't feel it at all. He only gently hugs Mayan, his voice full of regret. All right, I will definitely let you see Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao is my son. I know he is very strong and will be fine. But like you, I also miss him very much. I hope to be able to reunite with you and Xiao Bao's family as soon as possible. Jun Shangdarin has almost exhausted the strength of his entire life, saying a lot of soft words that he wouldn't normally use to comfort the person in his arms. Mu Yin sniffled and continued to complain. I participated in the Flourishing Heavenly Light competition to see Xiao Bao, but you got jealous and even got angry at me. I borrowed little Martial Uncle's name just to get the first place. Diming Ju hugs her tightly. His heart is still somewhat stuffy, but in the end, he only says domineeringly, Ben Jun will use Jingshi to smash you to the top of the Heavenly Light list. Mayan raises her head and looks at Jun Shangdarin's indignation, but he's forcefully suppressing it, not daring to flare up. He couldn't help but curl the corner of his lips and let out a long sigh. However, a trace of slyness flashed across his eyes. Finally, the whole thing was over. She plays with Jun Shangdarin's slender fingers, and the smile on her face has more dependence and sweetness that hasn't appeared in the past few days. Not at the moment. I can handle such a small situation by myself. But Mayan raises her head and looks straight into Di Mingju's deep eyes. If I really can't handle it, then in order to get the first place, I can only count on my hubby to support me. Di Mingju's body suddenly stiffens, and the hand holding mine tightens. What did you just call me? Mu Yan's gaze wandered, and she chuckled. I didn't say anything. Did you hear it wrong? Jun Shangdarin's tone has once again become flustered and exasperated, accusing him by name. But at this time, Mu Yin is not afraid of her at all. She flipped over and pressed the man under her body, looking down at him condescendingly, the corners of her lips raised high. Will Jun Shang come to watch the finals of the prosperous Heavenly Light in 2 days? Di Mingju wanted to agree. However, when he recalled that it was Tianguang ruins, his expression turned ugly. He grits his teeth and spits out words with difficulty. Ben Jun has something to do and can't go, but Han Yu will go. No matter how many crystals you need, he'll give it to you even if he has to sell all the goods in Tianguang ruins. TSK. All the goods in Tianguang ruins. Isn't Di Jun a bit too wasteful? Chapter 1445. But she could also vaguely guess that Tianguang ruins might be the territory of Di Mingju's enemy. Di Mingju might be in danger if he went in. She lowered her head and pecked the man's lips. Then, thank you for supporting me. Di Mingju's eyes darkened. He suddenly turned over and pressed her under his body. His icy blue eyes reflected a hot and dangerous light. This is a thank you gift? He held Mu Yan's chin, then leaned over and kissed her heavily. Yin, this is not even enough to pay the interest. Time passed in the blink of an eye. There was only 1 day left before the prosperous Heavenly Light final. Mu Yin walked on the way to the public class in the school of the Emperor's Star. She only felt that the atmosphere of the entire starry school was about to go to war. No matter where she walked, the name Yi Liang Chun would be poured into her ears. Ling Yusheng, who was walking beside Mu Yin, looked at the girl beside him and couldn't help but be speechless. Half of the Azure Blue world is so excited and nervous about your participation in the prosperous Heavenly Light final tomorrow that they can't sleep. Only Junior's sister still has the mood to come to the public class. Mu Yin smiled slightly and was about to speak. Suddenly, a few people rushed over from the side. Yaguang Branch, wait a moment. A chubby young man blocked in front of them and stuffed a stack of talismans into their hands without any explanation. These are Almighty Ye's talismans. I'm giving them to your Alcade branch for free. Remember to go to Tianguang Ruins tomorrow to support our Almighty Yi. Muyin looked down at the talismans in her hands. There was an obvious mark of the Tian Mo Qin that she made. She raised her head in surprise. These talismans are not cheap, right? You guys actually gave them for free? Fatty Zheng waved his hand indifferently. For our boss Yi, this little bit of crystal stones is nothing. Moreover, boss Yi's talismans are so good. One more person who has used it will naturally have one more person to promote for our boss Yi. But I warn you, after taking the talismans, you must go to Tianguang Ruins tomorrow to support boss Yi. Otherwise, the little fatty waved his meaty fist. This young master will teach you a lesson. Mine doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. She looks around and sees everyone sparing no effort to promote her. Listening to those, Boss Yi is number one under the heavens. Boss Yi is invincible propaganda. She unconsciously feels a burst of sourness and warmth in her heart. Even if it was for the sake of those who had been supporting her and protecting her, she couldn't lose this glorious heavenly light. What did you say? I dare you to say it again. Suddenly, an angry and shrill female roar came from the side. Mu Yin turns her head to look, only to discover that the one who spoke is actually Jiang Xinyu. At this moment, she was glaring fiercely at the few male cultivators in front of her, gnashing her teeth and stamping with rage. The few male cultivators in front of her disdainfully threw away the talismans in their hands. He sneered and said, "Am I wrong? The flourishing heavenly light has been held for so many years. Have you ever seen a talisman artist win the first place? That's right. The price of a random pill from Fairy Yaodai might be equivalent to their entire day's income. Supporting Great God Yi for first place? Aren't they afraid of making a fool out of themselves? Ha! No matter how good a talisman's effect is, could it be better than an elixir? I heard that for tomorrow's finals, Fairy Yaodai has already prepared the ultimate elixir, the explosive spirit pill. Chapter 1446. That's a life-saving medicine at a critical moment. Of course, the person who spoke was clearly a loyal supporter of Lung Yuyao. He raised his head proudly. Other than Fairy Yaodai, who else in the cultivation continent can make a 6th grade elixir before the age of 25? Moreover, it's the extremely rare 6th grade spirit explosion pill. This time, Fairy Yaodai is definitely qualified to be first in the glorious heavenly light. I admit that Yi Liangshen is the undisputed champion of the 3 academies in terms of combat power. However, in terms of popularity in the glorious heavenly light, Fairy Yaodai beats him. If you don't believe me, watch tomorrow's competition. If I'm wrong, I'll crawl around Tai Square while barking like a dog. Haha. Only these idiots think that a talisman artist can beat Fairy Yaodai and get first place. Yi Liangshan is nothing. Even if he gets the leader of the Green Cloud sect, what right does he have to be compared to Fairy Yaodai? Fatty Zheng was enraged. He couldn't care less about persuading Mu Yin and the rest anymore. He leaped towards the people who spoke. Fuck you idiots. You can insult me, but how dare you insult Boss Yi? I'll scratch you to death. The few of them instantly started fighting. In the Starry School, Yi Liangshan's fans had an overwhelming advantage. Very quickly, Lung Yuyao's supporters were beaten until they begged for mercy. However, Fatty Zheng and the rest didn't gain any advantage either, because very quickly, the people from the student council rushed over and separated the two parties. Jiang Xinyu's hair was all messed up. She looked very disheveled. However, her eyes were still burning. She gritted her teeth and said, "How dare these people slander God Yi? I'll curse them behind their backs. Fatty Zheng, I'm warning you. You must help God Yi get first place and kill Fairy Yaodia's arrogance. Zheng Little Fatty wiped the sweat on his face and said loudly, Don't worry, Great God Yi is the boss that Zheng Jiabao, know. He's the #1 in the world, and no one can defeat him. Brothers, let's go to Heaven Luo City with me to publicize. Zhang Xinyu waved her hand too. Sisters, come with me to Sanyan City to promote. She turned around and met Mu Yan's smiling gaze. Zhang Xinyu's carefree movements froze as she recalled her current sorry state. She runs her fingers through her hair in a flurry, and with a red face, she says, Jun Mayan, what are you laughing at? I'm doing this to support God Yi. The smile on Mayan's face deepens. She steps forward and removes a leaf from her hair. Her voice was soft. Don't worry. Yap will definitely win. We won't let you down. As soon as Zhang Xinyu raised her head, she was met with a pair of peach blossom eyes that were like the galaxy in a summer night. The young girl's beautiful face was right in front of him, and her voice was like the sounds of nature, ringing in his ears. Zhang Xinyu's face suddenly turned red. She stammered, Well, don't forget to support Guru Yi tomorrow. After saying that, she ran away with a red face. Ling Yuxing couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Little junior sister, what kind of magic do you have? Dressing as a man and dressing as a woman. You managed to make the young lady fall head over heels for you. However, Mu Yin retracted his smile and said in a deep voice, Let's go back. Go back? Don't you have a public lecture? Chapter 1447. Ling Yuxing nods, and the two are about to return to the Yaowang branch. Suddenly, a clear male voice comes from behind, Xiaosheng. Ling Yuxing's body stiffens, his brows slightly wrinkling. Soon, he sees Ouyang Qing walking quickly to the two. He doesn't even look at Mayan, who is next to him. His eyes seem to be glued to Ling Yuxing, greedily staring at him, as if he can't get enough of it. Ling Yuxing only feels that the gaze is scorching, as if it's going to burn his body and mind. He suppresses the inexplicable irritation and palpitation in his heart, frowning. Junior sister, let's go. Xiaosheng, wait a minute. Ouyang Qing quickly pulls him back. Ling Yuxing angrily wants to shake him off. Isn't young master Ouyang busy being a good brother and sending his little sister home? How come you have time to come back to the school? However, Ouyang Qing's hand firmly clasps his wrist, pulling him a little closer. The man's voice is extremely low, so low that only Mayan and Ling Yuxing can hear it. Xiaosheng, it's almost over. Give me a little more time. Ling Yuxing is startled, looking up to the man's scorching eyes that contain ice-cold, killing intent. A trace of doubt flits through his heart. However, before he can ask clearly, he finds that the surrounding people have begun to notice the two people who are very close. There are even many die-hard supporters of Ouyang Qing, angrily pointing at him. Ling Yuxing fiercely swings his hand, pushing the person away a little. Stay away from me. Ouyang Qing staggers back 2 steps, his handsome face showing a hurt and disappointed expression. Ling Yuxing's heart inexplicably tightens. Ouyang Qing quickly restrains the expression on his face, saying softly, Xiaosheng, in the school, you can find me if you need me to do anything. Even if I have to go through water and tread on fire. Even if, let me die, I will do it for you. Ling Yuxing is so annoyed that he wants to say, I'm not familiar with you. Suddenly, he seems to have thought of something. A pair of quick-witted eyes turn slightly. Are you really willing to help me with anything? Ouyang Qing's face brightens, quickly stepping forward and saying, Yes, Xiaosheng, as long as it's your request, no matter what you want me to do, I will definitely do it. Ling Yuxing said, Then can you mobilize the entire Tianshu institution to support Yi Liangshan in Tianguang ruins tomorrow? Ouyang Qing, Mu Yin, the onlookers. Ouyang Qing's face twisted for a second. She said with jealousy, Sheng, since when did you like the Yi Liangshan so much? Ling Yuxing looked at Yi Futian as if he was being ridiculous. Yi Liangshan is the leader of the Qinyan school, the top of the exquisite ranking, and the strongest cultivator in the starry school. Why can't I admire and like him? Ouyang Qing, who was ranked 3rd on the list of delicacy, was speechless. He felt as if his heart had been stabbed. The onlookers who had been looking at Ling Yuxing with hostility immediately became excited when they heard this. So he's also a supporter of God Yi like us? This junior brother is right. God Yi is so powerful. Who else should I support, if not him? Ling Yuxing narrowed his eyes at Ouyang Qing. You said you would help me with anything. Were you lying to me? Chapter 1448. Ouyang Qing gnashed his teeth when he said the name Yi Liangshun, as if he wanted to chew him to pieces. Mu Yin couldn't help shivering because of this monstrous jealousy. Ling Yuxing couldn't help but smile. Thank you, Brother Qing. Ouyang Qing suddenly froze and stood stiffly in the same place. He didn't even notice that Ling Yuxing and Mu Yin had left. After a long time, he suddenly covered his eyes with his hands, covering his reddened eyes. How long had it been since the incident that year? How long had it been since Xiao Sheng called him Brother Qing? When the two got on the flying boat, Mu Yin looked down at Ouyang Qing, who was still standing in the same place like a wooden chicken, and couldn't help laughing. Fifth senior brother, I really want to thank you. For me, you even used a honey trap. Ling Yuxing's face turned red, and he said, What honey trap? Don't talk nonsense. After a pause, he said, Even Jiang Xinyu and the others are so busy for you, wanting you to win the championship. As your fifth senior brother, as long as I can help you, what can I do? Mu Yan's smile recedes, and a little bit of warmth floats in her eyes, and I know that my fellow disciples are very good to me. I know how lucky I am to be able to enter the Xiaorao sect. Ling Yuxing suddenly frowned slightly. I heard from eldest senior brother that Lung Yuyao is really difficult to deal with. There are many geniuses in alchemy in the Flowing Moon sect, and Lung Yuyao is a peerless alchemy genius pursued by all the elders of the Flowing Moon sect. At the age of 25, she is already a 6th-grade alchemist, and her cultivation is also very high. She is now at the early stage of the Gold Core realm. I heard that even in the Flowing Moon sect, only a few people can successfully refine the Spirit Explosion Pill. This time, Lung Yuyao took out the Spirit Explosion Pill to participate in the final of the Flourishing Heavenly Light. It can be said that she has the confidence to win. Hearing this, Mu Yin frowned slightly. The Flowing Moon sect, Lung Yuyao, Fairy Yao Dai. She suddenly recalled that the young master of the D clan who fought with her for the purple gold pill furnace that day in Azure Cloud City seemed to want to give it to Evolution Moon sect's Fairy Yao Dai. In the end, relying on the income from Di Mingju and the young martial uncle's classes, Mu Yin barely managed to gather enough crystal stones within 7 days and snatched this 7th-grade alchemy furnace that Qi Huang has his eyes on. She did not expect that the cultivation world was so small. After going around in circles, she actually met someone from the Flow Moon sect again. Furthermore, it was an old acquaintance. It seemed that if the Flourishing Heavenly Light did not win this time, it would be unfair to the Flowing Moon sect for harming him back then. Ling Yuxing looks at Mayan worriedly. Little junior sister, are you confident that you can beat her? Mu Yin looks back, the corners of her eyes slowly lifting up. A strong and disdainful self-confidence blooms brilliantly in this absolutely beautiful smile. Fifth senior brother, what do you think? Seeing her smile, Ling Yuxing couldn't help but laugh and shake his head. He had asked a stupid question. Lung Yuyao was a peerless alchemy genius, but their junior sister was a monster that only appeared once in 10 million years. Di Mingju crossed the entire starry school. Others would need an hour with the flying boat, but he only needed a moment. However, it was at this moment. The voice captured by the divine consciousness made the Lord's expression extremely ugly. Ah, God Yi is my favorite. I want to marry God Yi. Chapter 1449. All of you get lost. Great God Yi belongs to all of us. No one is allowed to monopolize him. Tomorrow, everyone will go to Tianguang Ruins to support Great God Yi. Liang Qin's army will be invincible. Not even a blade of grass will grow. Di Mingju pushes open the door and sees the girl who has just finished drawing a talisman, her forehead slightly covered in sweat. Without saying anything further, he directly holds her in his arms and fiercely kisses her. Mine is kiss silly. However, feeling her fiancé's monstrous anger, she still pacifies him. Until both of their bodies were on fire, and they almost couldn't control the overflowing desire. Only then does Ming-ju release Mayan's swollen lips. But Jun Shangdaren's complexion is still a little unsightly. You are Ben Jun's. Only Ben Jun can monopolize you. Those bastards are dreaming. Want to marry Yin Yin? Want to marry Yin Yin? When those voices enter his ears, Ming-ju really wishes he could directly turn that group of courtyards into flying ash. Mayan is confused, but she still gently pats Ming-ju's back, like appeasing a child who has a temper. She chuckles and says, "All right, I am yours. Only you can monopolize me." Only then does Jun Shangdaren's complexion ease a little. But he thinks that everyone has to go to Tianguang ruins to support Mayan, and he can't go in. Jun Shangdaren somewhat gnashes his teeth. Tomorrow, Jun will also go to Tianguang ruins. Mayan jumps in fright and promptly stops him. "You're not allowed to go. You're not allowed to do anything that will endanger yourself. Do you hear me?" Ming-ju lowers his eyes and doesn't speak. But in his mind, he has an unimaginable thought. Mayan is about to force him to agree, but Ming-ju deliberately changes the subject. His gaze turns and falls on the talisman that Mayan has just drawn. It was just a casual glance, but when he sees it clearly, his pupils slightly contract. "This is a talisman that you drew?" "Yes." Mayan chuckles and nods. Ming-ju picks up the talisman and looks at it for a long time. Then his shocked gaze falls on Mayan. After a long time, he whispers, "Yin Yin, how many more surprises do you have for Ben Jun?" Mayan wraps her arms around the man's waist and slightly tilts her head. Her peach blossom eyes are gleaming like rippling waves, bewitching him as if it doesn't cost money. "If I am not outstanding enough, how can I be worthy of the most handsome, most perfect, and most mighty polar domain's sovereign emperors?" The final round of the prosperous heavenly light began under the expectations of the audience. It was different from the classification competition that lasted for a month. The final result of the final election will be decided within a day. 2 hours before the start of the competition, every contestant had to submit a work that they had refined, including but not limited to elixirs, magic treasures, and talismans, to be stored in the Jade Key of the Tianguang ruins. After the start of the competition, the items in the Jade Key space would automatically be stored in the ethereal mansion in Tianguang ruins for the practitioners in the upper, middle, and lower districts to experience. It was impossible to truly enjoy the effects of medicinal pills, magic treasures, or talismans. However, Tianguang ruins could simulate the situation after consuming pills, using magic treasures, and burning talismans. That kind of feeling was incomparably real, as if he was really there. Aside from the fact that it couldn't be used on the physical body, it was as if these people were really enjoying the effects of these treasures. Therefore, every time a practitioner experiences the ethereal mansion, they would need to spend a high-grade crystal. At the same time, the contestants would also get a point. Chapter 1450. Apart from the generous rewards, the cultivators who obtained the first place would also receive their names and identities. Most importantly, their names and identities would be announced to the various cities and towns of the 4 major domains. Every city tower would hang this name for at least a month. That was what it meant to be famous throughout the world, to be known by everyone. Before the hour had passed, the Rebirth Plaza in the upper, middle, and lower districts of the Tianguang ruins was already packed with people. The Rebirth Plaza didn't look very big, but at this moment, even though it should have far exceeded its capacity, it didn't seem crowded at all. And because it was a virtual Tianguang ruins, even if one sat cross-legged on the ground and watched leisurely, they wouldn't have to worry about being trampled. Everyone in the plaza only needed to raise their heads to see the huge tower in the middle. When the hour arrived, the stiff and mechanical voice of Little Tian sounded without any undulation. The finals of the prosperous Tianguang ruins will now begin. Contestants, please enter the stage. 20th place, Talisman List, dancing like ice. Just as little Tian finished speaking, a ray of light appeared at the window of the first floor of the huge tower. Above the window, the words dancing like ice appeared in large, glittering golden letters. Immediately after, an enchanting and charming woman appeared at the window. Once the woman appeared, she immediately made an extremely seductive gesture towards the crowd below. Her fair long legs were raised high, revealing a part that made people's blood boil, and then gently lowered. A delicate and gentle female voice sounded in everyone's ears. I'm Lu Ruoxuan. Today, I've brought eternal talismans. Please advise me. Although the window of the huge tower was called a window, it was actually like a huge arched door. The woman's appearance and seductive gesture were completely and clearly displayed in front of the crowd. The male cultivators below the huge tower immediately swallowed a mouthful of saliva as they stared fixedly at Lu Ruoxuan. Someone even shouted in an extremely vulgar voice, "Take off your clothes, and I'll go and experience your talismans." How about that? Yes, yes, take off your clothes. Many of the female cultivators and upright male cultivators present revealed a disgusted expression. But Lu Ruoxuan didn't care at all. Instead, she smiled even more coquettishly as she sat by the window of the huge tower. Even when she sat down, she crossed one of her long legs and slightly leaned forward to reveal her chest, making one's heart itch unbearably. Zhang Xinyu looked at Lu Ruoxuan in disgust and shock. Isn't this woman a pure and kind white lotus? How did you become so slutty now? Zheng Jiabao wanted to vomit at the thought of being bewitched by this woman. Did he lose his mind at that time? He actually thought that this woman was kind and pure. Fortunately, Boss Yi woke him up. Right at this moment, little Tian's stiff voice resounded once more. 19th Talisman List, Yi Liangchun. As a white light flashed on the second floor of the tower, the words Yap Liangchun also appeared on the window. At the same time, an ordinary-looking girl appeared at the window. She was obviously wearing the most ordinary clothes and the simplest movements, but when she did it, it seemed like floating clouds and flowing water, graceful and noble. Cheers immediately rang out from the crowd. Carefree Bro, Little Fatty Zheng, and the others were the happiest. But most people scoffed at the top of the talisman list. One had to know that the Ethereal Hall's experience cost a high-grade crystal stone each time. Chapter 1451. For an ordinary rogue cultivator, a piece of high-grade crystal stone could support their expenses for a year. Elixirs were expensive to begin with. A 5th-grade elixir would cost over 1,000 high-grade crystals. Spending a high-grade crystal stone to experience the effects of the elixir and comprehend its mysteries was absolutely worth it. The same went for magic treasures. But what were talismans? Even a 5th-grade talisman was only worth a high-grade crystal stone. But now, to experience it required a high-grade crystal stone. Weren't people stupid to try it out? So at this moment, apart from those die-hard supporters, almost everyone firmly believed. Of the two who climbed up the talisman roll, 19 and 20 were already their limits. The names of the participants of the flourishing Heavenly Light Finals were revealed one by one, and the windows of the tower from the 1st to the 20th floor were lit up one by one. Finally, little Tian called out the last name. First place, elixir roll, Lung Yao. The moment this name came out, the entire reincarnation square erupted in cheers, almost resounding through the sky. Fairy Yaodai, I love you. Fairy Yaodai, I've already spoken to the clan. No matter how many crystals we have to spend, we'll definitely make you the champion. Fairy Yaodai, we pledge our lives to follow you. The window of the 20th floor of the tower was lit up, and a gorgeous woman appeared at the window. She was tall, but her face was extremely small. Her facial features were exquisite, and there was a hint of delicate beauty. But her expression was arrogant and cold, like a high mountain flower that people yearned for but couldn't pluck. But the more arrogant she was, the crazier the male cultivators below became, all of them shouting goddess and fairy, almost turning the entire Tingguang ruins upside down. Easy Bro shrunk his neck in defeat. It's over. Why is this fairy Yaodia's support so powerful? It looks like boss can't win? Just as he finished speaking, Zheng Little Fatty glared at him. Bullshit. Boss Yi is the most powerful. He can even take down Azure Sky's sect master. What does a mere flourishing heavenly light count for? Boss will definitely win. Suzy looked at the unprepossessing girl on the second floor of the tower, his eyes shining brightly. He couldn't help but count the crystals he had placed in the jade key. In order to support little Missy, he had specially returned to the Su family to retrieve a large sum of crystal stones. He must help little Missy get first place. When all the contestants were in position, an ancient palace slowly appeared in front of the giant tower. Right in front of the palace hung a large signboard that read Ethereal House. There were a total of 20 doors in the stadium, and the names of the contestants were engraved on each door. Inside the door were the medicinal pills, magic treasures, or talismans that each contestant had submitted. The contestants in the huge tower could still stay by the window and look down at the magnificent scene below. They could also come down from above and interact with their supporters to promote themselves and increase their points. The finals of Flourishing Heavenly Light has officially begun. Little Tion's dull but steady voice sounded. The people on the reincarnation square swarmed into the Misty House. It was just that most people chose the expensive elixirs and magic treasures. In comparison, the 19th and the 20th gates could be said to be the least visited by people. Mu Yin still hasn't had the time to come down from the tower. Chapter 1452. Her exposed body is like a swallow returning to the woods. She throws herself into the arms of a fat man. The fat man is very fat and oily. He has a silly expression on his face. Saliva drips from the corner of his mouth from time to time. From the looks of it, he was clearly a fool. But when Lu Ruoxuan throws herself at him, he immediately grabs her breasts. He doesn't care about the eyes of the people around him. He touches Lu Ruoxuan all over. Lu Ruoxuan's eyes flash with disgust, but she doesn't show it on her face. On the contrary, she becomes more and more charming. The fat man was obviously satisfied. He waved his fat and greasy hand and said in an unclear tone, "Smash! Give this young master all the crystal stones to Liao." Muyan just comes down from the tower. Bei Kuei and Xiang Nuan come up to her anxiously. "Miss, do you know that fat man? He seems to be Zhu Kuanyong, the son of Zhu Fuguei." Elegant brother grits his teeth and says, "I didn't expect that Lu Ruoxuan even hooks up with Zhu Qianyong's son. I heard that although Zhu Kuanyong is a fool, he is very liked by Zhu Fuguei. He has a lot of crystals. What should we do? Sister, you can't lose to that Lu Ruoxuan. Everyone in the Laozi is #1 under the heavens." Store remembered the bet between Mu Yin and Lu Ruoxuan. While they're talking, Mu Yin finds that the position of the tower has changed. When the contestants leave the tower, the windows of the tower don't become empty. Instead, the portraits of the contestants appear. At this time, Lu Ruoxuan's name and portrait have swapped places with Yap Liangshan. She is ranked 19th, and Yap Liangshan is at the bottom. In fact, not long after the competition started, most of the contestants' positions have changed. Only Lung Yuyao's position is stable. She has more than double the points of the second place. Lung Yuyao doesn't even come down from the high platform. She is so cold and aloof, with the attitude of a goddess. However, her supporters were still crazy about her. Mu Yan's line of sight moves up. Looking at Lung Yuyao on the tall tower, the corner of her mouth hooks up in a faintly discernible arc. At this time, Lu Ruoxuan's voice comes from behind. "Yi Liang Chun, from now on, you have to kowtow 3 times when you see me. Don't ever forget that." Mu Yin turns around and glances at her with a smile that isn't a smile. "This is also what I want to remind you. Remember to kowtow together with your head on the leaderboard." He thought about how Yi Liangshan had turned the tables on the talisman puppet board at the last moment. Lu Ruoxuan's face twisted. She gritted her teeth and said, "Yi Liangshan, you can only be proud for a few hours." After speaking, Lu Ruoxuan returned to Zhu Qianyong's side, allowing him to lift her clothes in public and play with her, as if she was a prostitute. Her heart was filled with disgust, but she still had to let out an artificial moan. Mei Xian's voice could be heard from time to time in her sea of consciousness. Lu Ruoxuan, don't you want to see Liangchen die miserably in the Tianguang ruins? Why are you seducing such a disgusting man here? As long as you temporarily give me the control of your divine soul, I can naturally help you get rid of him. Lu Ruoxuan's expression changed again and again. One moment she was disgusted, the next moment she was greedy, and the next moment she was terrified. She was very eager to let Mei Xian kill Yap Liangchen. Chapter 1453. She once again faced Zhu Chuanyong's greasy mouth that was nibbling on her. On the other side, Lu Ruoxuan's points were getting higher and higher, and even climbed up one place in the giant tower, becoming the 18th. Easy Bro and the others were anxious. Boss Yi, what should we do? I'll go back and ask my grandfather for crystals now. Mu Yin, however, had a calm expression. What's the hurry? Didn't the competition just start? If you're bored, why don't you go to the Misty House and experience my new barrier-breaking talisman? Barrier-breaking talisman? Easy Bro was confused. How come I've never heard of this talisman before? Yeah, Boss Yi, what's the effect of this barrier-breaking talisman? Is it a variant 4th grade talisman? Mu Yin raised her eyebrows. None of you have experienced it before? Easy Bro and Fatty Zheng looked at each other, feeling a little embarrassed, because it took time to experience the talisman. So in order to increase their points as soon as possible, they were desperately throwing crystals. Even Yi Liangchen supporters gathered below said the same thing. Only throwing crystals, no experience. As for the effect of the talisman drawn by Boss Yi was naturally the best. What was there to experience? Buying one later only cost one high-grade talisman. Why waste this time? But now hearing Mu Yan's question, they were very ashamed. Boss Yi worked so hard to draw the talisman, but they didn't sincerely support him. They were too unworthy to be Boss Ye's diehard fans. Mu Yin smiled, not the slightest bit annoyed. Why don't you go and experience it first? It might be good for you, especially Easy Bro and Chen Ping Wu Gui, you guys. Easy Bro was confused. It was just an experience. What benefits could there be? But since the boss said so, he immediately said, Boss, don't worry. I will definitely go and experience it well. I won't let down Boss's hard work. But Easy Bro also decided that even if he had to experience it, he would only experience it once for the rest of the time. He would desperately throw crystals. However, a quarter of an hour later, Easy Bro and Chen Ping and the others staggered out of the Misty House, but their faces were blank and helpless. Their whole person seemed to have gone silly. Beikue Xiangnuan nervously walked forward. Brother Gua, what's wrong? What's the problem with Sister Ye's talisman? She did not finish her sentence. Easy Bro suddenly let out a weird howl. No, I want to experience it again. That mysterious feeling just now. I'm going to. I'm coming too. Then, without even seeing Bei Kue, Xiangnuan, and Zheng Xiaoping, they rushed straight into the ethereal mansion. The few people who stayed outside looked at each other, their faces full of surprise. Fatty Zheng, boss, what's so different about the talismans you drew this time? Why are they so strange? Jiang Xinyu, why don't we give it a try too? Therefore, the supporters who stayed outside also went in after a discussion. Then, all the loyal supporters of Yap Liangchen fell into this endless cycle. Everyone came out of it in a daze. He let out another strange cry, as if his buttocks were on fire, and hurriedly rushed back. The commotion here finally attracted the attention of the other people in the reincarnation square. Chapter 1454. Yeah, even if it's Fairy Yaodia's spiritual explosion pill, it's enough to experience it once. I've just tried it, and the spiritual explosion pill indeed lives up to its name. But there's no real effect after all. So what's the point of trying it a few more times? I support Fairy Yaodai. Just throw crystals at her. Who asked Yap Liangchen supporters to be a bunch of paupers? They don't have money to waste, so they can only waste time. Most of the people snorted at this scene, but some people couldn't help but be curious about what kind of talisman could make these people so addicted. So, thinking that it would at most cost 1 crystal, they walked into the ethereal house. After a quarter of an hour, the crowd saw these practitioners who went into the ethereal house to experience the talisman walk out one by one in a daze. They looked exactly the same as Elegant Bro and the others. My God, what kind of talisman is this? Why didn't I know that talismans have such an effect? No, I have to experience it again. After saying that, they immediately turned around and rushed in. Everyone's movements were neat and uniform, without the slightest delay. This time, the onlookers in the reincarnation square were really dumbfounded. So what if Yap Lianchin's supporters were crazy? Why did these passersby become abnormal after going into the ethereal house? Finally, someone couldn't help but pull one of the practitioners who ran out of the ethereal house. Brother Lee, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with that talisman? The male practitioner who was pulled stared blankly, his whole body in a trance, as if he couldn't react. Hearing this person's question, he slowly raised his head and said with a faint voice, "Just a little bit more. I feel just a little bit more, and I can break through to the 8th level of fasting. That mysterious feeling, I feel like I'm almost grasping it. No, I have to try it again." Then, he turned around and was about to rush into the ethereal house again. The person who asked the question was shocked. Breakthrough to the 8th level of fasting? Are you kidding? What kind of talisman is it? He knew that this brotherly had been stuck at the 7th level of fasting for almost a year, and no matter what he did, he couldn't break through to the 8th level of fasting. But now, he was just experiencing the talisman, not using it. Yet he was already on the verge of a breakthrough. However, before he could ask for more details, Brotherly had already thrown him off and rushed back into the ethereal house, as if he was afraid that someone would rob him of some treasure. The person who asked the question was shocked and confused, but his heart began to itch again. He originally had a good impression of Fairy Yao Dai, but it was not to the extent of adoration and worship. This time, he had not prepared many crystal stones. He only planned to support Fairy Yao Dai a little. But when he saw his friend in such a state, he could not help but grit his teeth and enter the ethereal house. As more and more people entered the 19th Dao Gate, more and more people began to enter like a rolling snowball. On the other side, Zhu Kuanyong did not care about the people around him. He directly tore off Lu Ruoxuan's clothes and arched his whole body. However, at this moment, someone shouted, "Yi Lianchin's points have increased." Lu Ruoxuan was shocked. She quickly pushed Zhu Kuanyong away and looked up. On the giant tower, Mu Yan's ranking is no longer at the bottom 20. Instead, it became 19. Chapter 1455. His score was closing in on Lu Ruoxuan's. How could this be? Lu Ruoxuan screamed. Impossible! How could his score increase so fast? She turned around and saw a huge crowd outside the ethereal hall. Most of these people were going to Lung Yuyao's number 1 hall and Inze's number 2 hall. But now, some of them started to line up in number 19 hall, which was the room where Yi Lianchin's talisman was. Crystals could be thrown at any time. There was no time limit, but there was a limit on the number of people who could experience the ethereal hall. Once the capacity was exceeded, they had to line up according to the order of payment. How could this happen? Lu Ruoxuan's face twisted. It was the same talisman, but there was not a single person in front of his number 20 pavilion. But there were so many people in front of Yi Lianchin's number 19 hall. Ah, look, he passed. Yi Lianchin is now 18th. Lu Ruoxuan raised her head abruptly and saw Yi Lianchin's portrait and name above her head. It was shining with a golden light and pressing her down firmly. Her eyes were about to spit fire. She turned to Zhu Kuanyong. "Where are the crystals? Smash them. Hurry up and smash them all down." Zhu Kuanyong drooled as he reached out and grabbed Lu Ruoxuan's slender waist. His plump lips kept nibbling on Lu Ruoxuan's body. "Kiss. I want to kiss." Lu Ruoxuan resisted the nausea and kissed Zhu Kuanyong for a while. Then, Zhu Kuanyong threw a lot of crystals into number 20 hall. Finally, Dancing Ice like Dancing Ice surpassed Yi Liangchun and was ranked 19th. However, before Lu Ruoxuan could feel happy, Yi Liangchun's score surpassed her again. Lu Ruoxuan screamed, "Crystals! Where are the crystals? Smash them!" Zhu Kuanyong swallowed his saliva and shook his head. "I don't have any more crystals. I haven't finished kissing you yet." "Get lost!" Lu Ruoxuan kicked him away. "You want to touch me when you don't have any crystals? Idiot! Get lost!" She looked at the male cultivators fiercely. "What are you waiting for? Why aren't you throwing crystals at me? Don't forget that you still need my immortal talismans. If I lose to that bitch Yi Liangchun, you guys can forget about getting an immortal talisman in this lifetime." Hearing the words immortal talisman, the male cultivators around Lu Ruoxuan, including Wang Jinbin, all revealed expressions of horror and hatred. But when they thought of the pain they would feel when the immortal talisman took effect, they still walked into the ethereal house. However, Lu Ruoxuan's supporters were too few, and almost all of the spar stones had been used up in the classification list. At this moment, even if Lu Ruoxuan squeezed out all of their wealth, they could only watch the gap between Yi Liangchun and her getting bigger and bigger. 18th place, 17th place, 12th place, 10th place. Yi Liangchun's portrait and name appeared in the middle of the tower. Moreover, the points were still rising rapidly. On the other hand, Lu Ruoxuan, since Zhu Chuanyong's crystal stones were exhausted, her ranking did not rise, but instead fell, and now she had already fallen to 19th place. She was definitely going to lose. A crushing defeat. Zhang Sinyu's cultivation was relatively low. After experiencing the ethereal mansion more than a dozen times, she came out contentedly and no longer fought for a spot. Chapter 1456. Then, she looked at Lu Ruoxuan, who was in a daze and had a twisted face. She walked to Lu Ruoxuan and mocked. "Lu Ruoxuan, are you ready to kneel and beg for mercy when you see God Yi in the future?" Lu Ruoxuan stared at her with bloodshot eyes. Her body couldn't help but tremble. Zhang Xinyu glared at her in disgust. "My brother used to say that you're pure, kind, and pure for someone like you. Luckily, he sees your true colors now. Lu Ruoxuan, a bitch like you is only fit to sleep with thousands of men. Kneel and kowtow to God Yi. I don't want you to dirty God Yi's eyes." Without waiting for Lu Ruoxuan's response, Zhang Xinyu walked away arrogantly. Although she wasn't going to experience it in the ethereal hall, she still had to spend crystals. She was going to support God Yi to the end. Lu Ruoxuan stared at Zhang Xinyu's back. Her eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. Then, she turned to the girl who was surrounded by many. The Yi Liangchun, who sent her to the 18th level of hell. She wanted to tear her into pieces. At this moment, Mei Xian's voice rang in Lu Ruoxuan's ears again. "How is it? Now, you should know that you can't defeat Yi Liangchun without me. Give me the control of your divine soul. I promise that Yi Liangchun will be doomed forever." Mei Xian's voice was full of temptation. It kept echoing in Lu Ruoxuan's head that was filled with hatred. Finally, she gritted her teeth and said, "Fine, but you have to promise that you'll make that bitch Yi Liangchun die a horrible death." In Lu Ruoxuan's sea of consciousness, Mei Xian showed a proud and coquettish smile. She devoured Lu Ruoxuan's divine soul bit by bit and wrapped it in her primordial spirit. Then, she took control of Lu Ruoxuan's body in Tianguang ruins. Mei Xian looked at Yi Liangchun greedily. She found out that Yap Liangchen's soul was so delicious the last time she touched him. It was 100 times more delicious than Lu Ruoxuan's divine soul. It was the real deal. Since she could become the leader of Qingyun's sect, her physique and talent must be monstrous. As long as she could devour Yi Liangchun's divine soul and take over his body, there was no need to worry about not being able to see the light of day again and shake the world once more. As for the backlash from attacking someone's divine soul in the Tianguang ruins, the backlash was naturally born by Lu Ruoxuan's spirit. Furthermore, the demonic technique that she cultivated allowed her to hide very well. Even Tianguang, Su wouldn't be able to discover her. Mu Yin is listening to Jiang Xinyu excitedly explain the effects of the barrier-breaking talisman. Lu Ruoxuan swayed her hips as she walked over gracefully. Walking up to Mayan, she doesn't reveal an angry expression. Instead, she smiles charmingly. Yi Liangchen, this servant is here to apologize to you. This servant was in the wrong before and offended you. Can you forgive this servant? Mu Yin slightly narrowed her eyes as a trace of doubt flashed through them. Although the Lu Ruoxuan in front of her was exactly the same as before, the feeling she gave off was completely different, especially the pair of eyes that were full of temptation and seduction. There wasn't a trace of hatred, but greed and passion. It was as if she had changed into another person. Before Mu Yin could say anything, Jiang Xinyu has already rushed over angrily and pushed Lu Ruoxuan hard. Get lost. You shameless bitch. You want to seduce Yi Liangchen after losing. Chapter 1457. Immediately after, Jiang Xinyu feels a chill seeping into her body from Lu Ruoxuan's hand, causing her voice to stop abruptly. Mu Yan's face changes. She suddenly steps forward, takes out a talisman, and sticks it on Jiang Xinyu's body. The talisman burns quickly, making Jiang Xinyu's body warm up from the bone-chilling cold. Mu Yan grabs her wrist and swings it, directly throwing Jiang Xinyu away. But when she wants to step back, her hand is firmly held by Lu Ruoxuan. A chill instantly spreads from her wrist. Wisps of extremely insidious, corrosive, and freezing aura instantly invade every corner of her divine soul. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly shrink, staring at the enchanting woman in front of her. You're not Lu Ruoxuan. Mei Xian laughs very freely. She sticks out her tongue and licks her lips, her eyes full of greed. Of course I'm not that waste Lu Ruoxuan. While speaking, she takes a deep breath, looking intoxicated. What a mellow smell of divine soul. If I suck it all up, I'll definitely be able to recover to my peak. Mu Yin quickly takes out a talisman and wants to burn it. However, as soon as the talisman is ignited, it's extinguished by Mei Xian's hand. TSK. You're just at the fasting stage, but you can even refine such a powerful talisman. If you're given a little more time to grow, I'm afraid even I won't be able to deal with you. Mei Xian slowly shakes her head, but the greed in her eyes becomes more and more intense. Unfortunately, your level is still too low. Do you know that when the servant died, I had already reached the crossing calamity stage? You're just a little fasting stage cultivator, and you want to resist this servant? I advise you to be obedient and let this servant devour you. This way, this servant can guarantee less suffering. As for your delicious divine soul and evildoer's talent, this servant will take over. Ha ha. Mu Yin feels that her divine soul is completely surrounded by a cold aura, and she can't move at all. And Mei Xian's aura has begun to erode her soul little by little, making her consciousness gradually blurry. Mu Yan's heart sinks a little. Now in Tianguang ruins, she can't summon the real Tian Mo Qin, nor does she have Qi Huang's help. Was her divine soul really going to be devoured by this monster? At this critical moment, two young and tender voices suddenly sounded in Mu Yan's ears. How dare you attack our first host? You're courting death. Let go of your filthy hands. Who allowed you to touch my people? Mayan stares blankly. The first voice that speaks is stiff and mechanical. She immediately recognizes it as Little Tian. However, the second voice was tender, clear, and piercingly cold. It seemed to be somewhat familiar, yet also somewhat strange. Before she could react, Mei Xian suddenly let go of her hand, and a shrill scream came from Lu Ruoxuan. Lu Ruoxuan flew into the air and spun rapidly in the air. Just a moment later, Lu Ruoxuan's clothes and accessories disappeared without a trace because of the rotation. His hair was a mess, his eyeballs were bulging, and his body was stiff as if he was dead. Immediately after, everyone in the Tianguang ruins heard a flat but cold voice. Chapter 1458. The next moment, she sees a white light hitting the distressed Lu Ruachin and Midair. Lu Ruachin? Immediately, an even more mournful scream, like that of a pig being slaughtered, slowly disappearing from the Tianguang ruins. Mu Yin still hasn't come back to her senses. She slowly lowers her head, and a small figure in a cold but delicate little face come into her eyes. This little face isn't particularly similar to Xiaobao's, but those ice-blue eyes are exactly the same as Xiaobao and Di Ming's. Almost exactly the same. Mu Yan's eyes widen in shock, and she blurts out, "Mo?" Yes, standing in front of her is the little friend that she almost mistook for Xiaobao in the Tianguang ruins, Mo Xiang. Since the last god of cooking competition, Missouri Xiang has disappeared without a trace. Mu Yin thought that he would never come to the Tianguang ruins again. Mayan thought that he would never come to Tianguang ruins again. Who would have thought that he would see him here again? Ink? He raised his head and looked at the void with a displeased expression. What does he need this Tianguang ruins to intervene for? His yin, he will protect himself. Little Tian banished Lu Ruachin and gave her a heavy blow to her divine soul. Originally, he wanted to take credit from the first host, but he suddenly feels his whole body quiver, and an inexplicable chill bursts. He doesn't dare to approach Mu Yin. Thus, little Tian snorts and quickly slips away. Mu Yin looks at the delicate and beautiful little boy in front of her with a pleasantly surprised expression. Mo Xiang. Why are you here? Mo Xiang? He turns his head away, somewhat uncomfortably, and his crisp voice has a hint of awkwardness and coldness. I came to the Tianguang ruins because I had nothing to do, not to support you. Mu Yin looks at his slender little appearance and can't help but want to laugh. She reaches out and pinches his tender little face. Long time no see. Mo Xiang? Why are you still so cute? Impudent, Mo Xiang shouts, overbearing and cold, containing infinite pressure. However, these domineering words are said in a crisp, childish voice, but it only makes Mu Yin feel that it's indescribably cute. She simply bends down and directly picks him up. Mo Xiang? His handsome little face darkens, and he uses his divine power to break free. Big sister. Su Zi rushed over excitedly, his clear eyes staring straight at Mu Yin. There seemed to be a flame burning in them, and the tear mole under his left eye was even more dazzling. I went to the Misty Mansion to experience the barrier-breaking talisman. Mu Yin smiled. How do you feel? Su Zi said, I've never felt so free, so carefree, and so powerful. Big sister, thank you. Due to the uniqueness of Su Zi's body, he was unable to improve his cultivation or combat skills. In fact, even slightly stronger pills and talismans could be used. He couldn't even use it, because it would be too much for his heart. Furthermore, his spirit was still unstable. Even his experience in the Tianguang ruins might cause his spirit and body to be unable to merge. All this time, Su Zi had allowed himself to live a weak and hopeless life, waiting for death. However, ever since he met Mayan, everything about him began to change. The most obvious ones were his body and soul. His heart no longer felt like it could stop at any time, and he had hope and courage to live. And just now, Mu Yin asked him to try the barrier-breaking talisman. He clearly knew that his body might not be able to bear it, but he did it without hesitation. Chapter 1459. However, he was pleasantly surprised by the result of the experience. Mu Yan's gaze fell on him, and there was a sincere light in her eyes. I should be the one thanking you, Zi. You've helped me a lot. If it wasn't for Zi's body, that brat Shi Huang of his would have been trapped in that space forever, unable to see the light of day or anyone else for the rest of his life. She paused for a moment, then continued, Don't worry, in the future, it won't just be talismans. You can even learn powerful cultivation techniques. Su Zi's eyes sparkled, and he couldn't help but reach out to hug Mu Yin. He wanted to give his sister a hug of gratitude. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, he felt a bone-piercing chill coursing through his body. Immediately after, she sees Mo Xiang, who was about to jump down from Mayan's embrace with a sour face. Turning his head, he firmly and possessively wraps his arms around Mayan's neck. Then, he turned around and gave Suzy a cold and menacing look. Suzy. Why did he always feel that this pretty little boy's gaze was as if he wanted to cut him into pieces? Suzy had wanted to ask who this annoying little boy was who had taken over the young lady. But at this moment, he felt a chill run down his spine and couldn't utter a single word. Cough. Little missy, I've prepared a lot of crystals. I'll throw them all at you now. Muyin just wanted him to experience it properly, so there was no need to throw crystals. However, Suzy had already slipped away. Humph, it's just crystals. I can also throw them at you. The sound of ink drifting into his ears? That cold voice. Muyin couldn't help but burst into laughter. Then I'll thank little Jew in advance. However, I don't need crystal stones. I'm already very happy that little Jew can come to Tianguang Ruins to support me. As she spoke, she planted a kiss on his fair and tender little face. Ink? His body stiffened, and his face quickly turned the color of a pig's liver. He was both vexed and furious. Damn the Nether Realm. When he returned to the Shoshin continent, he would destroy the entire Nether Realm and seize control of the Tianguang Ruins. At that time, only a ghost would use the body of a child. He had to make Yin sauce again in this Tianguang Ruins. Lu Ruo, being permanently expelled from the Tianguang Ruins, only caused a short uproar in the Reincarnation Square. Apart from those who had used the Immortal Talisman, they were extremely anxious. Others to Lu Ruo, such a person ranked at the bottom of the list was still a talisman. He didn't care about the people on the ranking list. If it disappeared, then so be it. The finals of the glorious heavenly light were still in full swing. Although Lung Yuyao had always been in first place. However, during this period, Yinze, who was in second place, also launched a fierce attack on the first place. It was only now that everyone knew that Yinze was the son of the master craftsman, Yinxiu. Moreover, the grade 6 spirit artifact that he was using for the competition this time had been guided by Master Yinxiu. Once the final selection of the glorious heavenly light ended, this spirit tool would be given to the person who had experienced it the most times. As soon as this news was announced, many people in the Reincarnation Square could not sit still. As a result, Yinze score soared and almost caught up to Lung Yuyao. In the end, Lung Yuyao had no choice but to walk to the window and say in a cold and condescending tone, I want to get first place. I hope everyone supports me. Chapter 1460. However, no one noticed when the fight between Lung Yuyao and Yinze was at its climax. A name and her portrait were climbing up the tower silently, and their speed was getting faster and faster. Sigh, Lin Qianqian's elixirs are actually very good, but with Fairy Yaodia's performance, I'm afraid Qianqian can only rank 6th at most. 6th is already a good result. What's going on? Why did Qianqian get pushed down? Damn, Yap Liangshan, who is that? Why did he push her Qianqian down? Talisman list? Are you kidding? A person who came up from the talisman list actually climbed to the 6th place? Did Tianguang Ruins make a mistake? She went up again, 5th place. 5th place. When everyone noticed Yap Liangshan's name, which seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, she had already entered the top 5 without anyone noticing. This time, the other supporters in the Reincarnation Square couldn't sit still anymore. What kind of crap is this? How could she enter the top 5? It's just a talisman. How could she draw flowers? Our Qianqian's elixirs are so good, and she has so many supporters. How can she lose to her? No, I have to try this talisman and see what's so good about it. If it's fake, I'm going to complain to Tianguang Ruins. However, when these people arrived in front of the ethereal hall, they were dumbfounded. Why are there so many people? Even Fairy Yaodia's elixir experience doesn't need to queue anymore. Are these people stupid? It's just a talisman. Once is enough. Why do they have to queue again and again? The cultivators in front of the ethereal hall's 19th door glanced at these people. He said calmly, You're new here, right? You'll understand after experiencing this talisman once. TSK, why are there so many people here again? Won't the number of times I can experience it be reduced again? Those who were here to challenge the ethereal hall looked at each other in surprise and curiosity. However, after coming out of the ethereal hall, there was no more. They also joined the cyclic army. Amidst the exclamations and doubtful voices, Yap Liangqin's name and portrait climbed to the third place on the giant tower at a steady pace, second only to Yinze and Lung Yuyao. Looking at Yap Liangqin's increasing speed, it was only a matter of time before he surpassed Yinze. This time, even Yinze and Lung Yuyao's supporters could not sit still, especially Yinze, who was about to be surpassed. His diehard supporters angrily surround Mu Yin. Each and every one of them has a fiendish appearance. However, before they could even seek justice for their idol, a voice suddenly rang out. Yinze pushes through the crowd and slowly walks up to Mu Yin. The supporters standing behind Yinze shouted, "Young Master Yin, please seek justice from this little girl. Who do you think you are, and who is she? What qualifications does she have to compare with you?" Yes, young Master Yin, there must be an inside story. Tianguang, Su must be siding with him. Don't be afraid. We will definitely seek justice for you. Yinze coughed lightly. There was not a trace of a smile on his naturally calm and solemn face. He really looked like he was here to denounce someone, and the diehard supporters behind him were even more aggressive, looking like they would never let the matter go. Chapter 1461. However, Yinze's words shock everyone present. What? Cured young Master Yin's father's injury? Isn't that Master Yin Xiao? Mu Yin smiles faintly. It's nothing, not to mention, Master Yin paid enough. Yin Xiao personally forged the 6th grade Flo Wang sword, and Mu Yin gave it to big brother Yun Ruhan. Yun Ruhan is using it very well now. Yinze's eyes flash with a strange luster. Miss Yi, the talisman you put in the Misty House? I also used it. It seems that you refined an amazing talisman? While speaking, someone suddenly exclaims, Surpassed young Master Yin? Yi Liangqin's score is higher than young Master Yin's. Yinze's supporters behind him are panicking, but Yinze doesn't seem to hear it at all, still looking at Mayan with a burning gaze. Compared to the ranking in the finals of the glorious heavenly light, I want to know more. What talisman did Brother Yi refine? Why am I the talisman? I've never seen a talisman with this effect in the illustrated books. Mu Yin carelessly says, this kind of talisman? It's called Barrier Breaker. Barrier Breaker, Barrier Breaker. Yinze murmurs, his eyes getting brighter and brighter. It's really an appropriate name. Miss Yi, I have a presumptuous request. After the end of the flourishing heavenly light, I don't know if I have the chance to buy a Barrier Breaker talisman from you? Mu Yin is about to answer, but Yinze's supporters are unwilling. Young Master Yin, what's wrong with you? This girl's score is catching up with you now. Why are you still leisurely buying talismans? And? That's right. We should work hard to catch up now. We will all support you. Yinze suddenly turns his head, looking at the people behind him with a serious face, and says in a clear voice, from now on, you will throw all your crystal stones to Miss Ye's Barrier Breaker talisman. What? I, Yin Xiao, promise that among my supporters, the one who throws the most crystal stones to Miss Yi will give her a 6th grade spiritual tool personally refined by my father. The surroundings fall into a brief silence, and then all Yinze's supporters explode. Why, Master Yin Xiao refined a 6th grade spiritual tool? Young Master Yin, are you joking? Yinze raised his chin and said proudly, when have I ever joked? All of you must send Miss Yi to the throne of number 1. Aoo, for the sake of Grandmaster Yin Xiao's grade 6 spirit weapon, I'll give it my all. Since it's young Master Yin's orders, we'll go and support Yap Liangqin. Yinze's supporters dispersed and ran to the ethereal house. Yinze turned around, his eyes burning with anticipation as he looked at Mu Yin. Miss Yi, can you sell a talisman after the end of the glorious heavenly light? For me, no matter how many crystals you have, I am willing to pay. Mu Yan's smile is deep and serene. It seems that Inze has realized the true effect of the barrier-breaking talisman. Moreover, the effect of using the barrier-breaking talisman in real life was incomparable to the experience in the ethereal house. Sure. Hearing Mu Yan's reply, Inze's solemn face suddenly blossomed into an excited smile. He turned around and left quickly. Before he left, he didn't forget to say, "Don't worry. I'll give you all the crystals I've prepared." In the tall tower, Lung Yuyao stood in front of the window with her eyes closed. Her expression was cold, and her whole body was emitting an awe-inspiring and arrogant aura. She attached great importance to the competition of the glorious heavenly light, but she didn't pay much attention to it. Chapter 1462. So what if Inze's score is slightly closer to hers? As long as she says a word, her supporters will still crazily throw crystals and then leave Inze far behind. The reincarnation square is noisy, becoming noisier and noisier, and some people are even screaming loudly. Lung Yuyao frowns in disgust. She really doesn't want to stay in such a place where lowly people gather for even a quarter of an hour. Just then, a voice suddenly floats into her ears. "Damn, 5,000 points, only 5,000 points left. If this goes on, it's only a matter of time before I catch up with Fairy Yao Dai." Lung Yuyao suddenly opens her eyes and looks at the misty house in disbelief. In addition to the huge tower, the ranking and points are also displayed in front of the misty house. The first place is still Lung Yuyao. Lung Yuyao sighs in relief, but when her line of sight moves down and she sees the next name and points, her pupils suddenly contract. The second place is Yi Liangxin, and not Inze, who has been left far behind by her. Moreover, Yi Liangxin's points are actually firmly catching up with hers, only a few thousand points behind her. What is this Yi Liangxin? How can he be able to catch up with her in just a few hours? Moreover, Yi Liangxin's points are still rising rapidly, and the speed is even faster than her own. If this goes on, Lung Yuyao will be overtaken, and losing the first place is only a matter of time. This time, Lung Yuyao really can't sit still. She is the heaven's proud child of the Flowing Moon sect, an existence that everyone pursues. Coming to Tianguang ruins to participate in the competition is condescending. Putting down her own identity, wanted to add a little more honor and fame to herself. If he lost to a nobody like Yap Liangchun, he would definitely die. Where would she, Fairy Yao Dai, put her face? Where would the Flowing Moon sect put their face? Lung Yuyao takes a deep breath, and her figure flashes, appearing under the huge tower. Fairy Yao Dai. It's really Fairy Yao Dai. Ah, Fairy Yao Dai, I love you. Even if I have to go bankrupt, I will support you. As soon as Lung Yuyao's die-hard supporters see her, they immediately swarm overexcitedly. The one leading them was the debauchee that Mu Yin had met at the Precious Pill Pavilion, the eldest young master of the D family, Decan. When Decan saw Lung Yuyao, his eyes shone with excitement, and he wished he could kneel on the ground and worship her. Fairy Yao Dai, I am Decan from Azure Blue World's Green Flame City. A few days ago, I went to Evolution Moon Sect to learn and seek guidance, and I brought you a pill furnace as a gift. In the finals of the glorious heavenly light, this time, I will do everything I can to support you to become the champion. Lung Yuyao raised her chin arrogantly. She had long been accustomed to the scene of being pursued by others. However, when she raised her head and saw Yap Liangchen's points increasing rapidly, her face darkened again. However, Lung Yuyao had always been cold and arrogant. Even if she was furious, she would never lose her composure. She raised her chin and said coldly, Yi Liangchen, who is ranked behind me, what is his background? No one knows where he came from, but he suddenly rose up. I heard that anyone who experienced her talisman, no matter who they originally supported, would line up in front of the ethereal hall. I wonder if that talisman is really that magical? Chapter 1463. But the problem is, even young Master Inze made his supporters support Yi Liangshan and gave up competing for first place. But rest assured, Yao Dai Fairy, we will never let him surpass you. Lung Yuyao's eyes turn cold. She turns around and walks towards Mayan. Yi Liangshan. A cold female voice interrupts the excited conversation between elegant brother and little fatty Zheng with Mayan. Mayan turns around and sees a cold and elegant woman with a haughty expression standing in front of her. Lung Yuyao. She raises her eyebrows. What's the matter? The people that Lung Yuyao meets on normal days either admire and adore her, or are envious and jealous of her. But this unprepossessing girl in front of her is looking at her without a ripple in her eyes, like looking at a pile of garbage. Anger rises in Lung Yuyao's heart, but she manages to suppress it in the end. I don't know what despicable method you use to make your points soar. It's just a talisman, and you want to be the champion of flourishing Heavenly Lights finals. Do you think it's interesting to do this? Mayan chuckles, her expression languid. How is it not interesting? My talisman overpowers Yao Dai Fairy's elixir and ranks first. I think it's very interesting. You. The fury in Lung Yuyao's heart suddenly rushes up, and she almost can't suppress her emotions. She takes a deep breath and sneers. Do you really think that you can beat me with this little trick? After saying that, Lung Yuyao turns around and looks at the cultivators that have gathered around. There are a small number of Mayan supporters here, but most of them are those who have tried the barrier-breaking talisman and are excited to come over and ask what kind of talisman it is. But because there are too many people, and the momentum is too great, they are blocked by Elegant Brothers' die-hard followers, not letting them get close to mine. These people naturally know Lung Yuyao. Many of them had once supported their goddess, Fairy Yao Dai, in the past. Seeing that Lung Yuyao has come to their side at this time, their eyes shine, and they are inexplicably excited. Lung Yuyao looks at the behavior of this group of people, and her eyes flash with contempt and complacency. She said in a clear voice, I, Lung Yuyao, hereby declare that as long as I can get the first place in the Flourishing Heavenly Lights final selection, I'll give it to you. From tomorrow onwards, all elixirs in the Derived Moon Pavilion will be sold at a 20% discount for the next 3 days. Moreover, the Spirit Explosion Pill that I refine will be supplied to the Derived Moon Pavilion at least once a month, and the order of the reservation will be based on the crystal stones that all of you have spent for me in the Derived Moon Pavilion. As soon as these words came out, the practitioners in the Reincarnation Square immediately became excited. The Derived Moon Pavilion was the largest elixir store in the 3 upper districts of Tianguang Ruins. The pills inside were expensive, but there was a complete variety and their effects were excellent. If the Derived Moon Pavilion's medicinal pills could have a 20% discount, then it would truly be a great discount. There was no need to mention the Spirit Explosion Pill, refined by Fairy Yao Dai. That was a top-grade pill. Initially, he thought that the Flow Moon sect wouldn't sell it casually. He didn't expect that they would supply one every month. The crowd dispersed in an uproar, rushing towards the Misty House to throw crystals. In just a short quarter of an hour, Lung Yuyao's points have left Mu Yin far behind. Lung Yuyao turns to look at Mayan, sneering contemptuously. Did you see that? I told you, tricks are useless against me. Chapter 1464. What Liangshan? I've never even heard of him, yet he actually dares to provoke Fairy Yao Dai. I think she's been flattered by those supporters to the point that she's forgotten how much she's worth. Ha. Our Fairy Yao Dai is aloof and aloof. She just disdains to bother with a small fry like you. Look, as long as Fairy Yao Dai says a word, she can trample you far beneath her feet. Each and every one of Lung Yuyao's diehard supporters is also very arrogant, very pleased with themselves. Especially Deacon, his tail is simply sticking up to the sky. The crystals that he's spent on the Spirit Explosion Pill experience can firmly be ranked in the top 3. Although he's not interested in the Spirit Explosion Pill, this might be able to make Fairy Yao Dai notice him. On the contrary, on Mayan's side, Yi Liangshan supporters all have ugly expressions, gnashing their teeth. The one with the worst temper, Jiang Xinyu, directly curses. Bah, nowadays, anyone can really call themselves a fairy. Saying it's so awesome, but how many crystals does an elixir cost? And how many crystals does a talisman cost? Usually, buying a 6th grade elixir costs thousands or even tens of thousands of high-grade crystals. Now, the experience only costs one high-grade crystal. Isn't it normal for many people to experience it? But our great god Ye's talismans usually only sell for a few high-grade crystals. Now, one high-grade crystal can only be used to experience it once, but the points are not lower than yours, and the number of people who experience it far surpasses yours. What are you all so proud of? Lung Yuyao's complexion suddenly turns cold, and there's obvious anger in her eyes. This is also the reason why she's particularly unhappy. In the past, those who ranked on the talisman list couldn't even enter the top 100. The most important thing is that talismans are too cheap, far inferior to the prices of elixirs and magic weapons. But this year, not only did this Yi Liangchen enter the top 20, now he's even steadily risen to the 2nd place, and is still unwaveringly chasing behind her. If it wasn't for her using her reputation and prestige and the derived Moon Pavilion's discount as a bait, so much so that her points would soon catch up with hers. Didn't that mean that the talisman drawn by this silly little girl was actually more valuable and sought after than the 6th grade elixir that he had meticulously refined? Lung Yao took a deep breath and narrowed her eyes. A cold light flashed in her eyes. You have a glib tongue and shameless sophistry, but you can't hide the fact that your scheme has failed. After saying that, he flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. However, before she could take 2 steps, Mayan's leisurely voice comes from behind. Mu Yin softly says from the bottom of her heart, "Shouty Yan, can you pass my words to the ears of everyone in the reincarnation square?" Of course, no problem, first host. As soon as little Tion's stiff words fall, Mayan's voice not only reaches Lung Yuyao's ears, but also reaches the ears of everyone in the reincarnation square without a trace. Her voice was very pleasant to listen to. It was as smooth as pearls and as smooth as jade, and it was pleasant to the ears. It also carried a languid, sexy, and melodious tone. It was completely different from her ordinary face in the Tianguang ruins. Therefore, almost as soon as she spoke, she attracted the attention of everyone around her. A lot of people want to know what kind of talisman that I put in the Misty House for everyone to experience. Hearing this, at least half of the people in the reincarnation square immediately pricked up their ears. They nervously and excitedly wait for Mayan's next words. Chapter 1465. As for the other half, they were completely confused. It was just a talisman. What was there to be excited about? The supporters around Lung Yuyao snorted disdainfully. Is this Yi Liangchen trying to copy Fairy Yao Dai and make some kind of promise? Why don't you take a look at yourself first? Mine smiles faintly. Under everyone's attentive gaze, she slowly continues. This talisman is a 5th-rank barrier-breaking talisman. Its effect is to help practitioners below high-level Jinan stage to break through the obstacles of cultivation. I believe that many of you have already experienced the barrier-breaking talisman in Ethereal Hall. Even though it's just a trial version, it's still effective, but it's not even 1/10 as effective as a real barrier-breaking talisman. Moreover, the effects of the barrier-breaking talisman can be stacked. In other words, if one barrier-breaking talisman can help you break through from Anidia to Jinan, then 10 barrier-breaking talismans will have a 10% chance. The reincarnation square fell into a deathly silence. Everyone widened their eyes and mouths, unable to utter a single word for a long time. Inze quietly clenched his fists, his eyes filled with excitement. The bottleneck breaking pill was indeed able to help him break through the bottleneck. He had been stuck at the peak of Anidia for a very, very long time. Every time someone found out about his cultivation, they would think of his identity. They would shake their heads in regret or gloat. No matter how talented he was in refining weapons, as long as his cultivation could not increase, a 6th-grade spirit weapon was already his peak. It seemed like Master In Xiao would have no successor. Even his father, In Xiao, was anxious. He even used the treasures he refined to exchange with other pill grandmasters for pills that could help him break through. However, there was no effect at all. Inze was afraid that his father would worry, so he did not show it on his face. However, he was suppressing his anger in his heart. How he hoped that he could break through to the Golden Core realm, how he hoped that his father would be proud of him and not be humiliated because of him. However, breakthroughs and epiphanies were things that could only be encountered and not sought. No matter how anxious he was, what could he do? However, just now, out of curiosity, he went to the ethereal house to experience Yi Liangshan's barrier-breaking talisman. However, he discovered that the bottleneck that had been shackling him for a long time was actually showing signs of loosening. Inze was so excited that he almost went crazy. What flourishing heavenly lights finals! Everything was thrown to the back of his mind. Inze immediately gives up on his results in the finals and turns to Mayan to ask for the barrier-breaking talisman. From the looks of it, his decision this time was right. After a short period of silence in the reincarnation square, intense discussions immediately broke out. Barrier-breaking talisman. Heavens! So that talisman is called the barrier-breaking talisman. Its effects are actually so heaven-defying. No wonder every time I enter the ethereal dojo, my whole body would feel restless and my heart would itch uncontrollably, as if I was just a little bit away from catching something. Are you kidding me? Is there such a talisman in the world? It can even help Xiaojia under high-level Jinan break through the bottleneck. If there really is such a talisman in the world, wouldn't it be even more heaven-defying than Dan? I can tell you responsibly that it's absolutely true. I just experienced it in the ethereal house. The trial version already has such an effect, not to mention the real talisman. Chapter 1466. Someone else screamed, Almighty Yi, will your father's #1 shop sell this kind of barrier-breaking talisman? No matter the price, I'm willing to buy it. Almighty Yi, I beg for the barrier-breaking talisman. I think I only need one to break through my current bottleneck. Mu Yan's line of sight slowly sweeps over the ashen-faced Lung Yu Yao. It's very simple. If I get first place in the flourishing Heavenly Lights finals, then from today onwards, my shop, the #1 shop in the world, will only supply 10 barrier-breaking talismans a day. If I don't get first place, then I'm sorry. The barrier-breaking talisman will not be sold to the public. It will only be supplied to the first batch of old customers who supported my world's #1 shop. He was one of the first customers to support him. Were they referring to those who unconditionally stayed behind to buy the talismans when Mu Yin had just decided to participate in the flourishing heavenly light? People who support him. There were also those who came to the Tianguang ruins for the master of the Green Cloud sect, Yi Liangshan. The students of the Third Academy would support her to the end, even if they had to use up all their crystals. These people are buying talismans from the #1 shop in the world. It was a permanent 20% discount. Therefore, North Sunflower, Xiang Yuan, and Brother Elegant recorded everyone's name. Instantly, the entire reincarnation square exploded. The joyful old customers of the shop formed a clear contrast with the wailing Xiaojia that had just experienced the barrier-breaking seal. Ah, Guru Yi, will support you forever. Joining Liang Chen's army is the best decision I've ever made in my life. Ha ha ha, barrier-breaking talisman. I can buy any barrier-breaking talisman, and it's at a 20% discount. I'm rich. We're rich. Fuck. Why only old customers? I, your father, have never heard of your father's #1 shop in the upper 3 districts. Is it my fault? I strongly protest that barrier-breaking talismans are only sold to regular customers. We also want barrier-breaking talismans. What are you talking about? Didn't Guru Yi say that as long as Guru Yi got first place, everyone would be able to buy the barrier-breaking talisman? 10 talismans a day. No matter what, we can still get a share of the pie. That's right, that group of people are happy too early. Let's go smash crystals now. We must push God Yi to first place. What? Support Fairy Yaodai? Get lost. Whatever fairy is more important than me breaking through the bottleneck. Most of the people in the reincarnation square went crazy. As for those who didn't know about the barrier-breaking talisman at the beginning, after seeing this scene, they also believed the effects of the barrier-breaking talisman. Together, they joined Liang Qin's army that was smashing crystals. Even Leng Yuyao's loyal followers were shaken and couldn't help but sneak into the Misty House to experience it. In just a quarter of an hour, Leng Yuyao's lead was caught up again. Moreover, Mu Yan's points are increasing faster and faster. It was so fast that Leng Yuyao's heart sank. But Jiang Xinyu and Zheng Little Fatty? Nathaniel, who was the one who said that our god Yi was using underhanded tricks just now? Does it hurt to be slapped in the face now? Does it feel good? If our great god Yi is the demon ghost, then what is the fairy who is not even comparable to the demon ghost? He a fly? Leng Yuyao was trembling with anger. She fiercely glares at Mayan. "You Liang Chen, you're shameless." Chapter 1467. What you just said was a fraud, a threat. Deacon immediately follows up, seeking justice for the goddess. What barrier-breaking talisman? I've never heard of it. How could there be such a talisman in this world? Mayan sneers. You haven't heard of it. It only means that you have no knowledge. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. Ignorant and inexperienced. Yet you still come here to show off. Don't you feel ashamed? That's why they say, what kind of master will be supported by what kind of master? The same shallow knowledge. Leng Yuyao is so angry that she almost faints. Good. Let's wait and see. There's only less than an hour left before the end of the finals. Don't forget, you're still behind me by so many points. I don't believe that you can catch up. After saying that, Leng Yuyao brushes her sleeves and leaves. She returns to the tower and immediately contacts her senior brother, asking him to quickly come to Tianguang ruins to support her. With her senior brother's prestige and strength, if he can appear in the reincarnation square, he will certainly shine brightly. Who is Yi Liangqin? He would definitely be able to win. However, her senior brother's reply is that he can't leave for the time being. Although he can't leave, her senior brother has stored a lot of crystals in the Jade Key. Leng Yuyao grits her teeth and throws all these crystals at the Misty House. However, as time goes by, even if Leng Yuyao throws all the crystals, even if she condescends to encourage the male cultivators who support her to throw money, but Yi Liangqin's points are increasing faster and faster. Finally, when there's only a quarter of an hour left before the finals of the flourishing heavenly light, Leng Yuyao suddenly descends from the top of the tower, and Yi Liangqin's name and portrait firmly step on her head. Leng Yuyao comes down from the giant tower in a sorry state. She looks up at the ranking above and almost grinds her silver teeth to pieces. No, how can she lose? Everyone in the Flowing Moon sect and Long Tongue Academy knows that she will participate in the flourishing heavenly light this time. Not many people come to support her because they all think that Leng Yuyao will definitely win. If the final outcome was that he lost to an unknown little girl, it would be a great loss to him. How can she have the face to stay in the Flowing Moon sect? Even from then on, she won't have a foothold in Long Tongue Academy. No matter what, she must obtain the first position. Fairy Yao Dai, are you all right? Deacon carefully moved closer to her and asked nervously. Leng Yuyao clenched her teeth and almost blurted out, "It's all because you bunch of trash are too useless." But in the end, she forcefully endured it. She blinked her eyes, and a look of grief and anger appeared on her face. She raised her head as if she was afraid that her tears would fall. Seeing her like this, Deacon's heart almost melted. Then, he heard Leng Yuyao's cold and slightly hoarse voice. "I can't lose the finals of flourishing Tianguang, and I don't want to lose. Fairy Yao Dai, don't be afraid. I definitely won't let you lose. I'm going to look for that Yi Liangqin right now. No matter if it's through coercion or bribery, I'll definitely make him give up the first position to you. Lung Yuyao's eyes flickered. She was somewhat tempted by Di Can's words. If he could make Yap retreat at the last moment, he might even give up on the match against Golden Era. That way, she would become number one and save her face. Chapter 1468. Yi Liangshan, listen, Deacon says arrogantly. As long as you immediately withdraw from flourishing heavenly light, this young master will give you great compensation. Otherwise, you'd better pray that this young master doesn't find you in reality, or else this young master will never let you off. Mine looks at Deacon like she's looking at an idiot. What are you? He dares to threaten her? Deacon straightens his clothes. Listen carefully to this young master. I am. Before he can finish, Mine is startled and leisurely continues. The young master of the D family in Xinyan City. Deacon stares blankly, looking at her in shock. You. How do you know my identity? Mayan chuckles, crossing her arms over her chest. Did you buy a Zijin furnace the last time you went to Pearl Pill Pavilion? No, that furnace is already. Halfway through his words, Deacon suddenly widens his eyes, staring at Mayan, gnashing his teeth. It's you. The one who fought with me for the Zijin furnace, causing me to be unable to give the best gift to Yaodai Fairy, is you. Deacon spent 6 days and finally gathered 80,000 crystal stones with great difficulty. He didn't expect to rush to Pearl Pill Pavilion, only to hear that it had already been bought by that kid. He flew into a rage, almost smashing the store. In the end, he could only buy a second-rate furnace for Lung Yuyao, making him feel that he treated Yaodai very badly. When he heard the name Yi Liangshan, Deacon felt that it was familiar. But Yi Liangshan in Tingguang Ruins was a woman, and the one who fought with him for the furnace was a man. He thought it was just a coincidence. He didn't expect that it was really this kid. Bastard, why do you keep going against me? Believe it or not, this young master will make you unable to survive in the Xiojin continent. Mayan picks her ears. How many times have I heard this sentence? Young Master D, you say you're not tired, but I'm tired listening. Lung Yao interrupts Di Can's rage, coldly saying, Yi Liangshan, name a price. What will make you withdraw from the finals of flourishing heavenly light? Mayan slightly narrows her eyes. You want me to withdraw from the competition so that you can take first place? TSK, the legendary Yaodai Fairy is actually so shameless? Lung Yuyao gritted her teeth so hard that they almost broke. However, she kept telling herself to stay calm. Her position in the Flowing Moon sect and her reputation in the Dragon Soaring Academy were the most important. Yi Liangshan, I'm the personal disciple of the Violet Cloud World's Evolvement Moon sect master. As long as you withdraw from the competition today, I guarantee that you'll be able to choose any elixirs in the Evolvement Moon sect in the future. Moreover, don't the people of the Azure Blue Realm want to enter the Purple Cloud Realm? As long as you agree to my conditions, I guarantee that one day, I will let you enter the Purple Cloud Realm, and even let you become a student of the Dragon Soaring Academy's outer court. Lung Yuyao looks at Mu Yin with a burning gaze. You won't lose out in this deal. Lung Yuyao believes that Mu Yin will definitely agree. This was because everyone from the Min Lu domain, the Blue Sky domain, and the Azure Blue domain wanted to enter the Purple Cloud domain. It was impossible for Yi Liangshan to reject the olive branch that he had thrown out. Moreover, there was the huge temptation of becoming a student of Dragon Soaring Academy. Lung Yuyao looks at Mayan confidently, waiting for her answer. Mu Yin chuckled, as if she had heard something interesting. At this moment, there was only half the time it took for an incense stick to burn before the end of the Flourishing Heavenly Lights finals. Chapter 1469. Lung Yuyao says anxiously, Did you hear what I said? Yi Liangshan, withdraw from the competition immediately. Believe me, you will not suffer a loss in this deal. Moreover, you will not be able to bear the consequences of offending the Flowing Moon sect. Mu Yin looks at the hourglass on the huge tower, and the smile on her lips deepens. You want me to withdraw from the competition? But I have a condition. Lung Yuyao is delighted. What condition? Say it. Mu Yin plays with the jade key in her hand. She has a smile on her face, but her eyes are cold. Unless you go to the huge tower and announce that the Flowing Moon sect is not a good person, and announce that you will withdraw from the Flowing Moon sect, I will consider withdrawing from the competition. How about that? The joy on Lung Yuyao's face suddenly turns into fury. Yi Liangshan, don't go too far. Do you know what kind of place the Flowing Moon sect is? Do you know what status it has in the Ziyun boundary? How can you slander it? Mu Yin listens to her exasperated curses, but she just leisurely glances at the hourglass clock on the giant tower. There's still less than half a cup of tea's time before the end of the Heavenly Light era's finals. If Fairy Yao Dai really wants to negotiate with me, then hurry up and announce it. Lung Yuyao clenches her fists tightly. Her usually cold and aloof face is almost distorted. Dekan, who is beside her, screams, Yi Liangshan, are you crazy? You even dare to slander the Flowing Moon sect. Do you know the consequences of offending the Flowing Moon sect? The jade key in Mu Yan's hand twirls. There is still 1/3 of a cup of tea's time. Lung Yuyao fiercely swings her sleeves, turns around, and leaves. When she turns around, her eyes emit a cold light. Yi Liangshan, good. She will remember this name. She will definitely get back the humiliation and hatred today by 10-fold or 100-fold in the future. Fairy Yao Dai, don't be angry. Who does that Yi Liangshan think he is? He only used those unorthodox methods to win against you. In fact, he is not even qualified to carry your shoes. Lung Yuyao's other supporters also agree. Someone even shouts, Bah! Who does this Yi Liangshan think he is? Isn't he just relying on our Fairy Yaodia's high and mighty position to not notice his existence? That's why he caught us unprepared. If we were given another 4 hours, Fairy Yaodia's points would definitely surpass hers once more. Yeah, now that time is tight. It's already too late for us to transfer more crystal stones into Tianguang ruins, which is why she took advantage of this loophole. This Yap Liangshan is so despicable. On Mu Yan's side, when the Liangshan army heard these words, they were immediately enraged. What the hell? Finding excuses after losing? How shameless! Lung Yuyao's skills were inferior, and she lost to our god Yi. What kind of fairy are you? Why don't you take a look at how ugly your sore loser face is? Who said our Fairy Yao Dai lost? The difference between the two of them was only a few hundred points. If it wasn't for the lack of time, we would have caught up to him long ago. Don't forget that our Fairy Yao Dai was tens of thousands of points behind you at the start. It's only a few hundred points. Come on then. Moreover, the gap between the points is clearly getting bigger and bigger, but some people are pretending not to see it. God Yi is not only number 1, but also number 1. Chapter 1470. If you have the ability, why don't you follow Fairy Yao Dai's score back then and take the lead? This way, I can prove that Yi Liangshan is stronger than Fairy Yao Dai. The hourglass on the giant tower was slowly emptied. There were only a few dozen breaths left before the end of the flourishing Heavenly Lights finals. Although Lung Yuyao was not satisfied with this result, she could only accept her fate. Listening to her supporters' defense, she was already thinking about how to save her face when she returned. Fortunately, the difference in points between her and Yi Liangshan was not that big. Moreover, she believed that everyone would believe her when she said that Yi Liangshan had used some underhanded tricks. Mayan, on the other hand, is already calmly drinking the tea that little fatty Zheng has brought over. Listening to Zheng Xiaopeng's indignant complaints, her expression was unusually calm and relaxed. Boss Yi, you are clearly much stronger than that Lung Yuyao, but these people are distorting the truth. Wasn't a few hundred more points a lot? In any case, you beat her. Mu Yin leisurely smiled and said, All I want is the result. As for how the dogs like to bark, what does that have to do with me? Zheng Little Fatty burst out laughing. Aren't they just a bunch of dogs that can't afford to lose? However, Jiang Xinyu was still stomping her feet gloomily. If you ask me, if you had 2 more hours, great God Yi, you'd at least be able to shake off that bullshit fairy by a few thousand points. Now, because there's not enough time, you're actually being slandered by them like this. Before she could finish her sentence, her eyes suddenly widened and a horrified expression appeared on her face. She raised her hand and pointed shakily at the points on the giant tower, but her lips and fingers kept trembling. Zheng Little Fatty patted her and comforted her. Forget it, forget it. Let them say whatever they want. We won anyway. No. No, you look this time. Before Jiang Xinyu could finish her sentence, someone beside her suddenly let out a shriek. Ah! Look at Yi Liang Chen's points. This shout immediately attracted everyone's attention. Even Mu Yin puts down her teacup and looks up curiously. Could it be that she was so unlucky to be overtaken by Lung Yuyao at the last moment? However, when she raised her head and saw her points on the giant tower, she could not help but gasp. Then, she rubbed her eyes in disbelief. No, wait a minute. Was she seeing things? Or was the way he raised his head was wrong? Why did his points double from 6 million a moment ago? Just a few breaths ago, she had seen her own points. It was just over 3 million, only a few hundred points more than Lung Yuyao. The two of them were in a tight race. The main reason was that the crystals stored in the jade keys of the Tianguang ruins were almost used up. In reality, it would take time to transfer a large number of crystals over. However, the Tianguang ruins finals had a time requirement. So in the last 2 hours, whether it's Mayan or Lung Yuyao supporters, the amount of crystal stones that can be thrown out is sharply decreasing. But now, at the very last moment of the finals, her points had actually doubled. It had doubled. In other words, at the last moment, someone had spent the total amount of crystals everyone had spent. Who the hell did this? The reincarnation square fell into a deathly silence. Following that, a ding-dong sound rang in everyone's ears. Chapter 1471. This year's Flourishing Tianguang's finals has officially come to an end. Now, I'll announce that the first place is Yap Liangshan. His final score is 123,856 points. The second place is Lung Yuyao. Her final score is 6,005 points. The third place, Little Tian's voice could no longer be heard by anyone. A burst of thunderous applause and clamor broke out on the reincarnation square. Ha ha ha, 12 million, 12 million. That's more than twice of Lung Yuyao's points. Who was the one who said that he would admit defeat if there was a difference of tens of thousands of points? 12 million points. That's the highest score in Flourishing Tianguang's finals, right? Almighty God Yap. Almighty God Yap. I can't believe there's such a tycoon in Liangshan's army. Ha ha. As expected, wherever Liangshan's army goes, there's nothing left. We're invincible. Meanwhile, Lung Yuyao's supporters were dumbfounded. Someone could not help but yell angrily. This is cheating. This is blatant cheating. How could his points increase so much at the last moment? This is impossible. Whoosh! Little Tian didn't let him finish his words and directly struck him with a 5-blow thunderstruck, causing the person who spoke to twitch all over. Subsequently, Little Tian's mechanical voice rang in everyone's ears. The results of Flourishing Tianguang's finals are 100% fair and just. Whoever dares to question Tianguang Ruins' credibility will be punished with a soul electric shock and will be banished from Tianguang Ruins for 3 years. This time, no one dared to say anything. To the people of the cultivation land, Tianguang Ruins had long been integrated into their lives and was indispensable. They would go crazy if they could not go to Tianguang Ruins for 3 years. Moreover, in reality, Tianguang Ruins' prestige was built over the years. No one would really question the fairness of Tianguang Ruins. Therefore, Yap Liangshan really became the champion of Flourishing Tianguang's finals with more points than Lung Yuyao. Lung Yuyao's supporters left dejectedly one after another. They did not even dare to look at Lung Yuyao, who was pale. Meanwhile, Lung Yuyao was about to go crazy. She had done countless mental preparations to convince herself to accept the fact that Yap Liangshan surpassed her. However, not only did she lose the first place in the glorious Heavenly Light competition, she was also 6 million points behind Yi Liangshan. From then on, as long as someone mentioned flourishing Heavenly Light, she would think of Yi Liangshan's 12 million points, and she would also think of Yi Liangshan, the person who was stepped on by Yi Liangshan. How could Lung Yuyao tolerate this? Her eyes were slightly red as she stared at the young girl who was surrounded by the stars. The jealousy and resentment in her heart grew and fermented crazily. She bit her lips and scratched her palms. With a hoarse voice, he murmured over and over again, "Lung Yuyao, you must remember today's humiliation. One day, you will make me pay 10 times, 100 times over." Then, her figure slowly disappeared from the Tianguang ruins. Muyan looks at the place where Lung Yuyao disappeared, and the corner of her mouth hooks up into a deep arc. In the flowing moon sect, everything had just begun. Don't worry. But then, she couldn't help but frown, her face full of doubt. Chapter 1472. As she is thinking, she sees a little boy with a cold face, hands behind his back, slowly walking towards her. That pair of ice-blue eyes is shining with a cold and aloof light. But when he meets Mu Yan's line of sight, there is a flash of tenderness in his eyes. "Emoju," Mu Yan says, "Where have you been? Why haven't I seen you for so long?" Emoju doesn't answer, but reaches out his hand and drops a crystal ball that emits a colorful light. The cold, childish voice says without any ups and downs, "Congratulations on winning the first place in the finals of the Heavenly Light era." Muyan doesn't think much and takes the crystal ball. As soon as it touches her hand, the crystal ball immediately explodes. The clamor on the plaza of reincarnation and the crowds of people rubbing shoulders had all disappeared. What replaced it is a bustling scene. From the first glimmer of dawn to the bright sun shining high in the sky, from the setting sun to the crescent moon, spring blossoms and autumn fruits, summer flourishes and winter withers. There are clouds for thousands of miles in the daytime, vast mountains and rivers. At night, there are meteors and bright fireworks. Muyan stares at the magnificent scene in front of her, almost unable to breathe. It was so beautiful and warm, so warm that her heart almost melts into water. In such a magnificent scene, she seems to see herself holding Xiao Bao and nestling in Di Mingju's arms. The family of three stays together like that, watching the 4 seasons pass by like a shuttle, time slipping away. There are faint tears in Mu Yan's eyes. There is yearning, but it's not sadness, but full of hope. A pair of small hands quietly held onto her hand and leaned against her in a protective manner. That pair of deep blue eyes, so bright, can't reflect the bustling scene, full of only that person's shadow. The shadow slowly disappears, and Mu Yan senses return to the reincarnation square. She wipes the tears in her eyes and looks at Emoju. Is this the moon in the mirror? Mu Yan vaguely remembers hearing about a very expensive virtual spirit tool in Tianguang ruins. Moon in the mirror. It doesn't have any effect, but it can let people see the fragrance of the 4 seasons, making people feel warm and happy, both physically and mentally. This moon in the mirror obviously has no effect on cultivation, but it is extremely expensive, costing thousands of high-grade crystals. A crystal ball can only be used once. Emoju pinched her fingers and asked, "Do you like it?" Muyan blinked. "You're just a kid. Where did you get so many crystals to give me, Moon's Mirror?" Emo Zhao scoffed. I could do it if I want to. As long as you're happy, I can give you anything." Muyan looks at the elegant and peerless child in front of her, speaking in an old-fashioned manner. Suddenly, an idea struck him. "Don't tell me you threw the last 6 million points at me?" Emoju's eyes flashed with pride. Muyin couldn't help but restrain her expression. Emoju. Who are you? There were so many crystals, and they were going to throw them away just like that? Furthermore, each person's jade key was of a different grade, and the storage space was also different and limited. With so many Jingshi, even if Mayan is now, she still wouldn't be able to fit into the jade key. Emoju's little face stiffened, and he hurriedly said, I have something to do. I have to go first. With that, without waiting for Mu Yin to speak again, his small figure slowly faded away. However, Mu Yin rubbed his chin and frowned slightly. Little Tian, do you know who Emoju is? Chapter 1473. Unless what? Unless the first host can become the real master of Tianguang ruins and replace the current temporary master's authority. Only then will you be allowed to reveal the user's authority. Otherwise, even the first host can't say it. Mine chuckles. Don't be so rigid. Tell me secretly. I promise I won't tell anyone else. Little Tian seems to be stuck for a moment, and after a long while, he says with a somewhat stuttering mechanical voice, I can't say it. And even if I can say it, Little Tian doesn't know. Little Tian can't trace Emoju's identity. Can't trace it? Even Little Tian, who controls Tianguang ruins, can't trace it? Doesn't this mean that Emoju's identity isn't simple? After Mayan leaves Tianguang ruins, the light on the rebirth square flashes. Little Tian says softly in a voice that no one can hear, First host, Little Tian misses you. I hope you will return soon, in Azure Blue Realm. If someone asked who Yi Liangshan was 2 months ago, the person who was asked would definitely be at a loss. What? Never heard of him. But now, 2 months later, in every major town, street, and alley of Azure Blue Realm, the name Yi Liangshan is mentioned in almost everyone's mouth. Even for a moment, he even overshadowed the most handsome man in the Xiojin continent, young Master Yun Xiao. What nonsense are you talking about? Who is this Yi Liangshan? How can he be mentioned in the same breath as young Master Yun Xiao? Huh? The person who heard the question shows a look of contempt. You don't even know Yi Liangshan? Aren't you too ignorant and ill-informed? Do you know about the Azure Sky rankings of Phoenix Heaven, Star Academy, and Lingwu Academy? I do. Isn't it the Nirvana, Exquisite, and Ling Xiao lists? In our Azure Blue realm, the people on these 3 lists represent the most outstanding young talents. But what does this have to do with Yi Liangshan? As soon as the person finishes speaking, a thick finger shakes in front of his eyes. Wrong, 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 absolutely wrong. How long has it been since you paid attention to the Azure Sky rankings? You don't even know that there are no Nirvana, Exquisite, and Ling Xiao lists anymore. What's left is only the Azure Sky rankings. Little Fatty Zheng pointed at the startled man before him and said arrogantly, Do you know who's the first on the Ascension rankings when the 3 rankings are combined? He is our god Yi, Yap Liangshan. The man who asked the question widened his eyes in shock. No way, don't lie to me. I'm from the Phoenix Sky Academy as well. For so many years, no one has ever been able to ascend to the top of the Ascension rankings and combine the 3 rankings into one. Ha ha ha! Zheng Little Fatty laughed loudly with his hands on his hips. But our boss, he did it. The man's expression changed again and again, and he was speechless for a long time. But he still couldn't help but say, even if this Yi Liangshan is the master of Azure Sky, he can't be compared to young Master Yun Xiao. Before Zheng Little Fatty could say anything, someone had already moved closer. He carefully held a piece of talisman paper in his hand, treating it like a treasure, but his face was full of excitement and worship. You're wrong again. If it was a few days ago, young Master Yun Xiao's reputation would naturally be greater than Yi Liangshan's. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.